Quick greetings. Welcome to a short video. It should be. And we want to jump in with our little screenshot. We looking at the Constitution. As always, we tend to look at the first Constitution, the Constitution of 1787, because the policy generally we want to always go to the original thing. What is more original? And this original Constitution, as we always say, has no amendments. It doesn't even have a Bill of Rights. Okay. So the reason why we pulled it up today is, we just want to find different ways of saying what we have said before. Federal recognition, not only is it unconstitutional for Indians to have a requirement that they be federally recognized. When you hear that term federally recognized, it basically means what it says. In other words, it's like the government is saying, well, we don't see you unless we federalize you. You don't exist to us. And what we're going to say in this video, and probably make it a short, is now, wait a minute, federal government. You have already recognized me. I don't need your recognition because you're supposed to recognize me as an Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 sovereign. So what you're doing is changing the way you see me or quote unquote recognize me. You want to recognize me as a foreigner. And so you created something unconstitutional called a federally recognized tribe. A federally recognized tribe has federally recognized Indians, we might conclude, right? But where did the federal government already recognize Indians? Was right here, y'all. We are recognized already by the pure fact that we are called what? Yeah, I don't like when my highlighter fails me. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union according to the respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed. So how do we know that this federal system already knew who we were and therefore already quote unquote recognized us is by virtue that we're referred to as Indians, right? So if you didn't recognize me, there would be no word in your constitution referring to me. Now, blacks, on the other hand, that entity would need recognition because it is not mentioned in any of the constitutions. You see, Indians, we just like to try to make it plain as much as possible. Why do you, as an American Indian, need something that they coined federal recognition when you already know who I am because you know that I'm not supposed to be taxed? You know that I'm not supposed to be enumerated in your censuses, and you know that I have no representatives in Congress because I was a separate people. We were separate, for lack of a better word, nation that were not under the United States federal government. What the federal government really means is that they created a new entity called federally recognized tribes. Because even in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, down here, these tribes, they're not called federally recognized tribes, right? Congress believes that this clause means that they are supposed to dominate Indians and make laws for Indians and tell Indians where they live and just have this what they call plenary authority. But as we said before, the word plenary authority or the phrase plenary authority is not even in the Constitution. So where is Congress getting these ideas from? But again, here we see to regulate commerce with foreign nations. So Indians are like foreign nations because we're mentioned in the same clause as foreign nations, right? Among the several states, I'm not even sure that was necessary. Um, the states were supposed to be like separate countries. But again, we have a monarchy driven district of Columbia that is getting its monarchy on, promoting this idea that they are needed to regulate. You're not needed. Each state, if they wanted to, and I'm not a big proponent of states as an American Indian, so-called. Uh, I'm a proponent of my ancestral land that was before what we call states. And that's the only way that I see that an Indian can get the authority that you have to show that you were here before a state existed. If you are standing or relying on a state, what you're saying is you appeared when the colonizer appeared, and no, not before, but after the colonizer appeared. What Indians need to do to get authority, legal, lawful authority, even, is that they have to claim how they have superior birthright on the land and that they are owed compensation for all the uh, resources that have been stolen. How are they stolen? They're stolen because Indians don't get compensated. Some foreign entity, foreign corporate entity is taking the profits. And we are just working. We might as well be slaves. American Indians might as well be slaves working for a slave master that we call a government because it is doing the most. The federal government was supposed to have the least sovereignty when it came to the hierarchy for or hierarchy of sovereignty here. In Americans are supposed to have the highest sovereignty. American Indians, as the first people of the land, we are the highest authority. If you cut out foreign monarchs, what you are left with is the natural heir, the birthright owner, the first and only sovereign on the land. China doesn't share its sovereignty with Russia, does it? Russia doesn't share its sovereignty with Germany, does it? Why do Indians think that they have to have a foreign entity that even suggests that it has any level of sovereignty when there's only one sovereign in any other country? Do we realize that a nation doesn't have foreigners as their first rulers on that land? It's always the people that look like the people of that landmass, isn't it? Except in America. And this is why I don't understand why Indians seem to jump at the chance to say that they built this system. You built a system for foreigners to come here and dominate you. Can you come again, please? That kind of didn't come out right. But because that's exactly what you're saying. If we built this system, we would have made sure that Indians ran it. But what happened with the South? That's a big conversation that I think has yet to be really comprehended. What the South shows to me is that even the Indians that agreed to be a state at some point got very, shall we say, disillusioned about what the states are doing. But they learned quickly, didn't they? Those southern states that when they saw how this was really going down, they wanted out. Now they thought they could keep their little federal republic, right? And have it to themselves. But that's not how it works when you didn't create it. The owner will come and say, oh, no, 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 no. This is mine, not yours. Don't get it twisted. You Indians didn't have states before King James arrived. So anything that you live on that's called a state does not belong to you. You don't get to run it. This is what I think Indians are not really seeing. It was sold to you. Let's say it this way. A state system was sold to you, just like citizenship was sold to you. And you found out what a citizenship is worth in this system that you didn't create, right, Indians? You found out rather quickly all through the civil rights movement. How are you getting hosed down and fought with because you are trying to stand on your alleged civil rights? They weren't yours. You were begging for scraps off of your master's table. That's what civil rights are. And they cooked up some for you. Had nothing to do with the Bill of Rights. That was for free persons. Indians were not supposed to have any rights from this United States system, federal or republic, or republic or democratic, I should say, but federal or state. We weren't supposed to have something that they give us. We were supposed to uphold what we had, which was our birthright. And that's what they were supposed to, quote unquote, recognize. They were supposed to recognize our sovereignty, not our submission. But of course, they would prefer we submit to domination. But again, that's why I say that what we're missing is just the big picture. Why would Indians want to break out of something they created? Why would the South want to secede from something it created? If Indians created this entire legal system, why did they find that they needed to secede from it? Oh, somebody, come on. There it is. Ooh, boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you, ancestors. Thank you. Thank you. Because these federal Indians and these civilized tribes and these 501c3s and these underground like Joe underground like Joe. In the last video we said the last name, this video we said the first name. So we're going to keep it, proper in that manner, okay? You know who I'm talking about, right? And we're not really putting this on him individually, this judge. What we're saying is the Indians that he descend from were the ones who, as he said, chose to be Black or chose to be called Black. So what does that mean? That means you despised your birthright. And as Christian as you want to be, although you're not or shouldn't be, somebody has to say it. I mean, this is with no offense to anyone, but the fact remains is America was never seen as being originally a Christian country. But that's another thing that the federal Indians push. Oh, we was always Christian. My Jesus and all this. You didn't know nothing about no Jesus until this Catholic Church forced it on you. But they'll never admit that. They got some alternate history coming from the Moors. If we let it, we will be completely deceived by Moors. They are telling you their story as if it's your story. Oh, because you look like them, and that's why we believe it's us. But again, why would the South want to secede from something it created? It should have been dominating what it created if it created it for real, for real. But no, it was running away from. Why are you running away from your creation, civilized Indians? Because you didn't create it, civilized Indians. What happened was you got sold a dream like the American dream, like the United States federal citizenship, like civil rights, and you fell for it. That's what happened. How do you think you built this system? We did not build this system. Else we wouldn't have to want to break away from it. And furthermore, we weren't allowed. I don't even want to include myself with that, to be honest, but those were the lands of my ancestors. Those southern states where my ancestors, that was where they basically are from those states, and they migrate, further up, but they were the first to do that migration. So that is why Algonquin land goes like from Florida, the further you go back. But they don't want to admit that. That's another thing they don't. But Algonquin land really it stems from southern states on up to the northern states. It wouldn't have been called Canada when we were there. So, once I guess Britain decided that it needed to get rid of as many Algonquins as possible and sort of let that be a Canadian situation, because the British don't really have warm and fuzzy feelings for Algonquins like they do for Iroquois, which they were able to mesh with Iroquois. What the Iroquois gained by getting with Britain was basically the manpower that they needed to defeat a larger group of Indians that were known as Algonquins. Algonquins always outnumbered Iroquois. So they couldn't really have dominated without Britain. So they were in cahoots, and they basically, I would have to say, they still rely on their foreign connections, to keep Algonquins stuck on stupid. Believing that we built this. Algonquins are the least of the Indians that would have built this system, because they've been genocided off of the land. The word Algonquin is not really used. Like I said before, you'll hear the individual tribes like Lenni Lenape, but you won't really hear that they are Algonquin. You just hear the Lenni Lenape, and that's how they want it. They don't want to mention Algonquins. And the Lenni Lenape are, again, we always say they are highly compromised, but they were not as critical in the genocide of uncivilized Algonquins, because they were already way up North America. So colonizer was not as threatened by the Lenni Lenape. Colonizer wanted the South. And so that's where the Algonquins had to be eliminated from. And then you have this whole, so now they're trying to say basically that all of the South belongs to the civilized tribes. It can't be the case. It just can't be. I say that because you would have befriended Algonquins more if that were the case, and you would recognize Algonquins more. But this code of silence that we have going on with Algonquin, that just the word itself, it shows that colonizer does not want to ever bring that word up because they're depending on the five civilized tribes, which are Muskogeans, along with the Cherokee, who are Iroquoian, basically. But the Cherokee themselves, there's evidence that they were Algonquin. Well, as we always say, it was the first language before Muskogean language, before Iroquoian language. And I love saying it. I really do because it's one of the evidences that show how old Algonquin presence is in the eastern woodland area. It's older than any Muskogean, y'all. The Algonquin language is older than Muskogean, so that means the people are older than Muskogean, the people that spoke the language. There was no such thing as Muskogean when these people spoke Algonquin, and there was no such thing as Iroquois, and that's why I think Iroquois had to give up their writing. Now, I always joke and say Iroquois didn't know how to write. The more truthful way to look at this is the Iroquois certainly did know how to write. It's just that their writing was Algonquin and they had to give that up. They had to give that up. Just like civilized tribes have to, the original ones had to give up being Indian and they went underground as blacks and they push a black agenda because I did a video that didn't make it off the cutting room floor, but in that video I was saying Indians are much more threatened by other Indians, and it's just a fact that is across the board. In other words, it's not that Indians are so much more violent than any other people. What I'm saying is you will always, no matter what people you are, when you have to answer to your own people because you have betrayed them, the foreigner is actually in a better position than you are because the foreigner will always be given the pass that, hey, you're a foreigner. Of course, we're going to have differences. Of course, we're going to bump heads. Of course, we're going to have disagreements. Of course, I should expect that you might rather be my enemy than my friend. But when you turn that argument to another Indian, let's say the harm runs deeper, the distrust runs deeper because it is a it's just more overall hurtful than if a foreigner betrays you, whatever people you are. What I'm saying is it would be the civilized tribes that really have the highest interest in keeping other Indians in the dark more than colonizer. Colonizer can say, yo, I'm the colonizer. Of course I'm going to be your worst enemy as to the extent that I can. But when your own kind are coming up against you, what is there to, how do you not feel that deeper than the betrayal of a foreigner? So this is why I've come to understand this push for calling us black, it has to be coming from the civilized Indians that went underground. Because once you become civilized, as we always say, civilized or being civilized means genocide to the American Indian, so-called. So once you become civilized in colonizers' world, you're not an Indian anymore. And quite literally, that is what happens. So there really is no such thing as quote unquote Negro civilized tribes. What you have is an erasure of the identity of these Indians. Their identity is no longer Indian because after you become civilized, you become like a Negropean. That is that would be your level of arrival. You will arrive as a Negropean because once you're civilized, that is what a Negropean sees himself as. The Negropean sees himself as civilized, and Americans are uncivilized heathen. So for the Negropean to be able to tolerate your existence in his presence, he must genocide you, and you must assure him that no, I'm taking your identity. I'm giving up my birthright to you as well. And I'm trusting that you, being a man of God of the foreigner's religion, I'm trusting your foreign God over my ancestors. Yes, I am. And I'm doing it boldly and proudly, but however, undergroundedly. We have to do it underground because we can't see the thing that colonizer wants a civilized Indian to do is tell the other folks that might start realizing that they're Indians. It is the onus is on you, reformed, newly made Black Indians. You have to convince them. We're not going to be able to do it as you know, in our European face. We need your Indian face and body to tell these other Indians that they are African. Are you up for the job? Yes. Yes, master. I am up for the job. Now, how much you going to pay me for that? Oh, don't worry. You'll be compensated handsomely. That's the deal, y'all. It has to be. So, why would an American find it of no consequence spiritually or morally to just give up his birthright because he's more seduced by the monetary charms offered by the Negropean. He's more seduced by this, I don't know, I don't know what to call it. I want to say it's a lifestyle of some sort that is seen as a more luxurious one. But what American Indians might not be considering is that that is the nobility that's showing you this thing, this lifestyle. And but nobility are looking for subjects. Now, the subjects can sort of dress like the nobility and sort of partake in that lifestyle, but they are under the subjugation of a monarchy. And so now, we have a lot of Indians saying that we had a king. And I'm like, oh, I thought we had chiefs. Okay. So once you become a civilized Indian, everything that ever saw you as an Indian is being genocide. It's being erased. Your new identity is Negropean. That's what it is, y'all. Because you don't want to be an African slave, right? So the Negropean it's your choice, but you cannot choose to be an American Indian. We're going to give that to the Mongolians, okay? So that they'll cover your ass. Whenever the word Native American comes up, we'll throw in Indian so to try to start to make that shift from the you know Indian that's mentioned in the Webster's Dictionary of 1828. American was usually the copper-colored dark races found here by the European, but now they're going to have the color of Mongolians. They're going to be called Native Americans. And the subtle word changes are clues. Uh, American Indians are really not Native Americans. They are just American. They are just American, not hyphenated. Just American. They're not Native American. They're just American. So what's happening is Europeans are being called just American more than anybody else in America. The other people are getting a hyphenated, but the Caucasian is tends to be called just an American. They're not called European American. So that is how the words were meant to be our designations. The Indian is giving up. And then once you give that to the Moor, he gives it to his offspring. You see, he needs a legacy. So he has to give this directly to his mulatto offspring that he calls white. And so he wants him to be called American because he still wants to kind of be confused with Indian somewhat. But together, both of y'all are going to be some kind of hyphen, African American. Now that's the basically the general, the ultimate end of the line is American Indians as well as Negropeans are now going to be referred to as African American, as Jesse Jackson declared, and it did come to pass. Now, didn't it? So once you start talking the way the Negropean wants you to talk, that goes mass global, what they call global. And then everyone calls you African American. See, but when an Indian speaks, it's like a mouse pissing on cotton, as they say. It doesn't reverberate. It don't go nowhere further than these YouTube streets, apparently. And I'm not saying that Indians are not basically all over YouTube. I'm just saying that voice is not as loud as a voice like Jesse Jackson. When he said that we want to be called American Indian, that reverberated because the Negropean is on board with that. But when American Indians get on the YouTube, and it's like at this point, at least a couple of hundred. It's just there's a when I say that, when I say 100, I'm including the ones that listen to these Indian YouTube channels. They go up into, the viewership is in the hundreds, right? At the very least. So you have you're telling your audience, and some of these Indian platforms are quite large. So it's getting out, but again, it's still like a mouse pissing on cotton. It's not reverberating. Now, it only took one Jesse Jackson to get up on some platform and say, proclaim that all quote unquote Negro blacks want to be called African American. That spread like freaking COVID, y'all. That spread all around the world. But the American so-called Indian's voice, when we stand up and say we're American Indian, it's like a whisper compared to one Jesse Jackson, like hundreds of Indians saying, no, we're American Indian. That goes nowhere. Isn't that rather incredible? They're suppressing it. So we have a system that is fine tuning itself enough to know how to, let's just say, not hear the American Indian. And as of late, I guess one of the bigger platforms of Dane Calloway has a video where, oh, now they really want to get reparations. Yeah, they want to pay you Indians off and say, shut the hell up. We hear you saying that you're American Indians, and what are we doing? We're trying to get reparations bill for Africans. You see what I mean? So, but again, Indians, look at this Constitution and tell me, did you ever need to be federally recognized when the damn Constitution knows who the freak you are? I was trying to create a new curse word. I told you when my mom, God rest her soul, when she got angry, she tried to create a new curse word. And I think that was me kind of replicating that. And then I decided, no, I don't want to use a curse at all, and it came out freaking or something. But you don't need federal recognition, y'all, but we have to stand up and say it. Now, when we talk in terms of Constitution, now even Jesse Jackson wasn't, that big proclamation had nothing to do with the Constitution, right? But the key to, I think, the newly awakened Americans, so-called Indians, is that we actually can use the Constitution, which does give your voice a little more weight, because you're showing that somehow the system just steered clear of this Constitution. Else it would know that, oh, we don't need to be recognized. Here we are right here at Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. Do you recognize that clause? Okay, so that's the kind of Indian we're supposed to be, okay? Now build on that. What they did was they ignored that. Or what we see on the screen, they ignored that, and they jumped to this to proclaim, oh, that one little sentence means that we have complete and total authority over Indian tribes. Where does it say that though in this? What do we look? Oh, regulate. You think so? Regulate is commensurate with dominate. Regulate means that you have total authority. That's what regulate means. According to Congress these days, that's what it means. They didn't even qualify it. They just say that right there, what you read, to regulate commerce. Now, again, we ask the question, do they totally dominate foreign nations? See, that's how you do it, y'all. So why do they think this clause has something to do with dominating a foreign people? Because we are, as American Indians, unfortunately, and fortunately, we are foreign to this thing that's sitting on our land, or this District of Columbia, but we're also foreign to the states because we're not mentioned with the states, which are called Indian tribes. But somehow they are interpreting this to mean federally recognized. But you're not recognizing our first mention. That's our federal recognition right there, y'all. But what you're supposed to recognize again is that I'm not part of you. You're supposed to recognize that I'm, the way you like to say it is, I'm a third sovereign. Well, we know in our world, we're the first sovereign because you are on our land, not the other way around. We are the first sovereign. It's just that your spiritual system said we were heathen, and you built a law system based on your spiritual system. I'm saying to Indians that you got to let both of them go. But Indians are telling me, no, we built this. And that was our God. When they came here with Jesus, oh, we said, oh, we remember him. No, that's not, no, no, no. That's not how it went, y'all. We have to stop being so adolescent with this religion, y'all. You got to be a spiritual adult and be more of the mind that I have to take control of my spirituality. I have to. If it's a personal relationship, then as they say it is, right? Then why is it not a personal relationship? Why am I being as if I can't have a narrative aside from my colonizers narrative of who God is, what God is about? Because I'm telling you right now, the difference between colonizers' spiritual system and the American Indians did not need a sacrifice system. We didn't have a sacrifice system because it wasn't necessary. We did not see ourselves as sinners, right? It was the foreigner that did. So then why would we need a savior if we didn't see ourselves as sinners, y'all? Come on, somebody got to talk about it. We didn't need a sacrifice. We were doing our thing, y'all. We were connected, y'all. And no offense to any other religion, but I want to say it like this because I think that's where you see it in action, sort of. Now, I say this respectfully. Jews don't need a savior. They don't need somebody dying, okay, to make up for their sin. No. when they did do that, it was animal sacrifice. Um, so even in that, they would have they had the dominant role in dealing with their own sins, if we look at it that way. Because it's the difference between, oh, I messed up, let me go sacrifice my goat and I'm good. So you have authority. But when Christ comes along, what you're being asked to do is worship the sacrifice. I said this before, y'all. So let's not act like this is hurting our ears, okay? Maybe unless you hear this for the first time, then it might be hurting your ears, and I do apologize. The message is strictly for Americans because why am I justified in talking like this, y'all? Come on now, we got to keep it basic, you know. Don't make get too jiggy with it. Don't do too much with it. The basic is, what is the basic? When colonizers found us, we even read where Giovanni Verrazzano said we had no religion. What he's saying is we did not have the religion that they had. What does that mean? We were not Judeo-Christian. I'm just trying to bring perspective to the picture because I think what happens is when we get lost in colonizers' narrative, we lose perspective because you have to cut it off. We got I don't know what to call them, but they are skin folk for sure. I don't know about kinfolk, but they're skin folk on YouTube platforms that say we got to stop going to time immemorial. And what they mean by that is forget Columbus, forget that Columbus came here. Just take that. But my argument is, how can American Indians not include Columbus in their history because it's too far back and it doesn't count because that is in time immemorial? That's what some skin folk are saying. When I say skin folk, that means they could be Moors, okay? I'm not saying they definitely are because they could be so indoctrinated by Moors that they don't even consider themselves Moors. You see what I mean? But the more an Indian is asked to not go into their past, when you have a skin folk on a platform saying you can't go past the 1700s, because we don't know if that was true. I'm telling you, y'all, you're dealing, I don't want to say what I really want to say, okay? But you're dealing with someone that's not acting as a scholar, someone that is like the professor of their own university and so forth. That's why I'm saying that, because you're a proclaimed, self-proclaimed scholar. So, but if most scholars find that going back in history is critical to get a clearer picture. But we have a new breed of skin folk that are saying, no, we started in the 1700s. So you're saying that we only existed when colonizers got here? And you don't see a red flag there. You don't see that you're being asked to, once again, genocide your history because you existed before Europe existed. You existed way before Africa existed. So for you to only count your history as when they showed up, you're cutting off your ancestors. You're cutting off your own nose to spite your face. I just want to keep it basic. This is not to disrespect anyone, but you know why I do this, y'all, is because I find that I have to keep myself grounded. Because when you hear a really good Moor speak, you will lose all sense of reality because they are wordologists. They are spellcasters extraordinaire. They're priests. So when they do it, they add a touch of, shall we say, the satanic, because they have access to those forces. They don't, they play more with those dark forces than we would like to think. When the first book King James wrote was on demonology, okay? So he dabbled in the dark, and then he found a way to make dark look like light when he did putting his name on a certain book. But the book he really delved into, well, and the name of his book is called Demonology. There's just so much to work with there alone. So your king first studied demonology and got a grip on that, and then he started working with quote unquote holy scriptures. See, you see the trajectory there. You see that what preceded uh, the that Indians want to believe is the work of their ancestors. You're talking about your Moorish family again. Moors were monotheistic, but Indians were not. Okay. There are some people again rewriting history and trying to change that, but this all the reason why Americans were made quote unquote dead in their law is because they didn't see that we were worshiping the same God. That's why we were made dead in the law. It's not that we broke any laws. Again, when Giovanni came here, he was interested in our spiritual system and he deduced that we had no religion. Why didn't Giovanni Verrazzano say, oh, they practice some religion much like ours and they're much akin to what we do in serving the Lord? No, that's not what he said. So all I'm saying, Indians or Americans, I think we got to, really get used to being called American again to make America great again. Indian is something that they threw in the mix to divert us. But once we let them know that we know that that's how they did it, they made us Indians and they made Europeans American. That's it's not that won't be hard to prove. But we do want to let it be known that we're being treated the way we're being treated because the misnomer that we were given, Indian, has been genocided for the term black and Negro colored and all of that. We uh, worked on a document that dealt with eradicating those terms and calling them unlawful, unconstitutional, and calling for them to be banned from the legal system, well as along with the legal system. Why am I saying that? Again, we did not build this system. It's a foreign legal system, evidenced by the South having the need to pull away from it. Why would the South, you're going to keep saying that, why would the South want to pull away from something it created? If you created it, you should be secure in it and know every which way it works, the ins and outs, all the legal terms. Instead, what did we have? We talked about it early on. We talked about how we built a system allegedly. We built a legal system, but then Britain defined our legal terms. So even that shows, wait a minute, if we built it, why is Britain defining the legal terms and we just running with that? because those are the Moors that are doing that, not American. American Indians, what they did was just say, "You're the city mouse, and you Moors are like city mouses to us. We just dig your swag and your style. We gonna let you run everything. Just do you, brother. As long as I can wear the same clothes you wear and walk around here like these frilly, pretty things on, and be like a pimp, a whole pimp. You got this. You got this." So that's what Indians were impressed with. They seem to be impressed with the city mouse aspect of the nobility, because again, we're dealing with the nobility, not necessarily their subjects. That's a whole other story, very often, right? The subjects of nobility are not as fly, shall we say? They're not as fat. So the old lingo. They're not as blazing or whatever. They're not the joint. All the old slang, right? But cool, you know, and they not as fire as the nobility themselves, but the nobility walk around and say, "Don't you want to dress like me, American Indian?" And American Indian, yeah, these loincloths get itchy sometimes. I mean, I don't necessarily believe that we had loincloths, but I know that that's how colonizer would like to portray it. What I'm saying is, by the time they got here, who knows what we were wearing? I just think we're being lied about because, first of all, we we have fictionalized our identity, meaning that we took on by the unction of the Moors, we slid into a black identity. So from that point on, we don't know what they did with this thing called American. They dress them how they want them because we're no longer identifying, right? With the more whispering in our ear that, look, I'm nobility and you can be like me. Um, or just look like. So again, we have the South trying to break away. And if you really want to be real with it, the South, they are part of the Union and they are the losers in the Union. That is the stamp that's on the South. And I would say that it's still valid today because you being part of the Union means you were the one that was forced into a 14th Amendment situation. And then Indians have to say, if I design this system, why did they have to force the 14th Amendment on me if I designed the 14th Amendment? Or if I designed any of this thing? Well, if I designed it as an American, why would I call myself an Indian? How about that? Your colonizer called you an Indian. That's why his constitution doesn't refer to you as an American. Suddenly, the Constitution is looking to make, again, Caucasian Europeans known as American. So we get called Indian. But what we want to do is claim the position that Indians had without claiming the name Indian so much. But you see, we have to be in a place, we have to be a sovereign to do that. If you're a slave and a subject, you don't get to self-identify. See, what a lot of American Indians don't understand is that as long as you're under federal, you don't have the true power of self-identify. The colonizer is saying, well, I quote unquote recognize you, not like this first highlight that we're looking at here. I recognize you as subjugated under me through commerce because somehow I'm using the Commerce Clause as my battle axe. Now, I don't do that to foreign nations. Let's look again at that Commerce Clause because we want to, again, keep it up front center. So regulate the way Congress sees regulate when it comes to Indian tribes. Again, they say they have plenary authority over it. So we got to ask, do you have plenary authority over foreign nations? If this clause is to be consistent and it means plenary authority only over Indian tribes. Why aren't you calling yourself as having plenary authority over every foreign nation on the planet? Do the United States have plenary authority over foreign nations based on looking at this clause? But they look at this clause and they insert something that is not constitutional. What are they inserting? They are inserting commerce, and they are inserting the doctrine of discovery, y'all. So why are Indian tribes here not treated like foreign nations here? Where foreign nations, they self-identify, they make their own laws, they got their own rules, they do their people how they want to do their people. Indians, in this same clause, we are being dominated by Congress. So we are not like foreign nations. Then why am I put here with foreign nations? Because this clause was never meant to be an excuse to dominate anybody. Okay? It was never supposed to mean total domination of any of the parties there listed there. The states had more sovereignty. Just look it up somewhere. States had more sovereignty than the federal government because the states were first. So that's a little legal mathematical equation there. In a legal equation, how do you establish authority? You have to appear first in the equation. That's how you establish authority in the legal world. So, who of all these people listed, the foreign nations and the states, who is the first thing in America? That would be so-called Indian tribes, right? Yes, colonizers will try to say that, if you call yourself an Indian, that means you're not American. Well, that's an easy fight to dispel. Let's not get too caught up in the word Indian. Yes, it's a misnomer, but it's a misnomer hiding our true standing on the land as the first people. So once again, they're using their word spells to displace the original sovereigns. But let's not get too caught up in that because we want to, okay, the alternative is this. If we really wanted to go all the way with this, what we would say is the people you found in America are Americans, right? Just like if you found people in Africa, you call them Africans, right? Just like if you found Chinese in China, you call them Chinese, right? So when you found people on the landmass that is known as America, technically and lawfully, they are Americans. So if we're not mentioned exclusively as the Americans, that means none of this contract apply. But you see, they're going to fight that. I mean, I don't know how they could really. Technically, that is the truth. But we need, I guess what I want to say is we need a bread trail. We need a crumb trail. That's what they call it, crumb trail. We need a breadcrumb trail to show what happened to us and how the corporation operates. We need to, so this is why it's actually rather critical to use this document as evidence that there's misnaming going on. And technically, if you're not mentioned in a contract by your true identity, the contract doesn't apply to you at all. That's how Indians can just basically shred this entire, yes, I'm sorry, legal people. This is how the law works. Don't get mad at me. Get mad at, I guess it would be the British legal system, because that's how they work it. How does it work? If you're called a misnomer and it's not your true identity, it doesn't apply to you. That law doesn't apply to you. The United States laws were never supposed to apply to Indians because we're not represented in Congress. We were supposed to be like a foreign nation. See, down here, They pair us with foreign nations because that's what we're akin to this government. But if Indians keep saying, we built this, you are confusing this document. You got it confused. If we built it, we should have never introduced the term Indians. It should have been all about America. And it would be clear that we are the only Americans. That's how I know we didn't build this system. What Indians need to start to learn to say is, okay, my Moorish family members on my father's side, or if it's your mother's side, whatever, they're the ones who keep telling me that we built this system. But clearly, they are genociding the Indian side of the family once again. That's all they know how to do, really. It's some nasty work, y'all. It's nasty work of the highest level. Because when do, I said this before, when do American Indians get to go to Morocco and start introducing a new narrative saying, well, no, y'all are not Moroccan, you're actually Indian. I mean, they would love it because they would have at our resources, but it wouldn't fly, y'all, because it don't make sense. But American Indians want me to believe that, oh, we wanted these foreigners here to work off debt. That's what the new narrative is, apparently. When you figure out the game, the Moors know how to change the rules of the game. So forget the fact that we were completely dominated with the doctrine of discovery. Now it goes to somebody owed us something. No, those are the Moors that feel owed. That's their shenanigans, commercial shenanigans. We don't exist in their system. And when we do come into existence, we are reborn as Negropean. That's why he keeps telling you that you did this when you didn't, because you have to become him because you're heathen. And it's a really simple concept that I think it's so simple that it goes above people's heads. In their system, they cannot deal with Americans because Americans are heathen. They have to make them over and give them a Negropean's identity if they're a little lucky, and an African's identity. Well, that's the last stop on the train for everybody, unfortunately. They get you on board, but they don't tell you where you're going. Indians got on board because they thought being Southern states was something cool. And then when they found out what it was really about, they tried to run for the hills. And the people that really built this government said, you ain't going nowhere. You already sold me your soul, Negro. Yes, I call you Negro now, not American. You have sold your soul to me. You don't get to leave this union, baby. That's not how this game works. So Indians have an identity crisis, mostly because we don't know how to we don't know how to have a separate identity that we love and embrace without a Moor being there to sort of foster this. And what all the Moor is doing is telling you his story and saying that it's yours because he's genociding you right in your face and you don't even know it because he looks like it. The evidence is there, y'all. I have to keep saying it. If we built this system, why were we trying to escape from Alcatraz from this shit? And we weren't allowed, y'all. We got caught. We got caught. They treated us like slaves, y'all, if you really look at this picture. So say now the South was a slave that tried to run away. Baby, you got caught and you were made a slave forever. Forever as a federal United States citizen because you were forced to adopt the 14th Amendment. And there's some Indians just trying to make this a lot more complicated than that. It's real simple. This system was never for you. And when you finally figured it out and tried to break off and you thought that this was a free country because you thought each state was like a country, they told you, no, that's not how we built it.
We just told you that to get you on board, and you are already neck deep in it. You ain't going nowhere. You are calling on a state. I created the state, number one. You should have called on what you had as your ancestral land, and then you could get somewhere with the corporation. But if you are calling yourself the corporation's name, and the corporation only came in the 1700s, and you go back to the 1500s and way beyond, that means you're cutting off your leg and your nose to spite your body and your face to take on this fictitious Johnny come lately identity in a state. When you come against a beast like the corporation, you better know where you came from. You better find yourself. You better do like what Ike told Anime, and she did find herself. Unlike a lot of Indians are trying to do or not trying to do. Find yourself. And yourself is not a more. And that's where a lot of the confusion is coming from. So let's look at John Punch as an example of what happened to the South. So to say the South was a slave, the Southern states were slaves. They didn't know it, but they was. So we're gonna go for that. We're gonna go to this timeline. This is very interesting, and I did want to dive into this, but since I already started on another note, we're just gonna look at it quickly. So this is from Wikipedia, but they're basing it, this timeline is based on this book, The Civil War Almanac. When you use Wikipedia, if you use it, just make sure you go down for footnotes to find how they are validating what they are saying. So when you do that here, when you go to the bottom page of this timeline, and you click on where did you get this timeline? It's down here at the footnotes, basically. See, we're still in the time. Okay. So the chronology. So what they did was a timeline chronology, right? But they told us you go to page 12 and read to 54, the chronology, the war years. And here is the ISBN number. And so what they're saying is to get what we listed here, we got it from this source. And so when you click, let's see, it should take me back. Wait, where do I want to go? To the chronology. Does it take me to, oh, wait, take me to the book. No, okay, I'm sorry. Wait. There was one, when you clicked here, it took you to, okay. Here's you gotta, so this is footnote number 2. When you click on it takes you right to the reference. So what we're doing this to show where this timeline came from. So we start with, we're not at the top of the timeline. Oh boy. Because, okay, let's go back down. Because we want to, because it takes you to, I think I clicked on C. Let me click on another part of that link. We just want to validate, because we're using Wikipedia, we want to validate their source. So let's go to A. Is it A that I need? Okay, now A takes you to the top of the timeline. So I find this timeline very, very interesting. Okay. Once again, when you go to Wikipedia, you want to find out where did they get this timeline. I hate this, scrolling is forever. It's a long ass timeline, but it's from page 12 to 50. So it's like about 40 pages of timeline that we're working with. So let's go down here again to the footnotes. And as you see, depending on where you want to go in the document, you click, say now you want see this reference. What are they talking about when they talk about the battle cry of freedom in the Civil War era? So that will take us here. Oh boy. It takes you to the different parts of the document that you need to go to. Okay. 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 So once again, let's just go to the timeline because I let's try this one more time because just want to etch it, you know, for clarity. You go to A of footnote number 2 for the chronology, right? And it's John Bowman's The Civil War Almanac, right? It's from the Bison Book Corporation, 1982. There's the ISBN number, but they're saying to get this information from this book is listed here. That's where they got it. Okay. You know what I'm saying, right? Okay. So now let's go to the PDF I made of this because it's a little more clear, bigger, or whatever. So in 619, a Dutch ship arrives in the Virginia colony carrying about 20 Black Africans as indentured servants. What shocked me here is that we are always told that they came as permanent slaves. But this book here, we just, I don't have the book. I'm just saying this is the book that's saying it. So you need to, Civil War Almanac by the author John Stuart Bowman. Okay. They don't allow us a sneak peek at the book, so let's just go back. But that's what they're basing this on, right? If you also go to the Jim Crow Museum, they are basically saying, from what I recall, they're saying the same thing. I might have to link that because I don't know that I have that pulled up today. But anyway, let's keep reading a little bit more. So in 1619, what they call, I guess they refer to as the 1619 Project or something, a Dutch ship arrives in the Virginia colony carrying about 20 Black Africans as indentured servants. From this beginning, the African slavery is introduced to the future United States. The big flag here is Africans came as indentures in 1619. They were not permanent slaves. Now, how did you become a permanent slave? Now, mind you, I believe Dane is saying, if I'm hearing him correctly, if I'm wrong, pardon my mistake. But I watched a video of his recently, and he's saying that these ships actually came from the Caribbean and not Africa. So that is something else we would have to look at. I believe that's what he said. If I got that wrong, my apologies. So in 1640, the General Court of Virginia orders John Punch, a runaway Black servant. Now here they don't call him African. No, notice he's called Black, right? Okay. So there's the little ways that the word they start using different terms, and you don't even realize there's no consistency because they're introducing new characters, so they can't really call it. We don't know if it's African or Indian, right? John Punch, right? At this point, right? As just reading what we read, right? They didn't say he was African, they said he was a Black servant. So to serve his master, his assigns for the time of his natural life, here or elsewhere. So they're saying the General Court of Virginia. Now, the Virginia Indians were taken over by colonizers. So is this an Indian court? Are there Indians out there that are going to argue that this was an Indian court that sentenced this man to permanent servitude? See what I'm saying when I say be careful when you say you built the system and you have records in the Virginia court, blah, 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 and all that. So it was your court that made this? So you Indians made permanent slaves in America, and then you became one? That's how we do it? Mm. You see how common sense works, y'all? So we have Indians swearing up and down that we built this system. Yet this system kicks our ass each and every day and twice on every day. And we still have no clue. So we kicking our own ass. What you want, if that ain't a Moore trying to create that narrative, I don't know what it is. See, for the Moore to get vindicated, you have to take the blame for what he did. I want you to hear what I'm saying. In order for a Moore to go scot-free before even his God, because evidently he wouldn't have to lie if his God was so down with this. He would just say, this is what my God do, right? So what I'm trying to say is, the Moore is in such violation that he has to rely on lies to vindicate himself, y'all. He got to say that you kicked your ass, not me. Find yourself, Negro. Find it. And when you find yourself, it's going to be me, a Moore. So you did this to yourself. I didn't do it as a Moore. You did it to yourself, my nigga. See how that worked, baby? Indian, why don't you find yourself for real, as an American and not anything to do with a freaking Moore? Do you see how you get in trouble? Okay, so I'm hearing that Indians made this court in Virginia. That is so ridiculous to me. So, message to the world, the dilemma you see happening in the United States is because American Indians, some of them, not this one, y'all. This is where I part ways. I'm sorry. Dedication only goes so far. Commitment only goes so far when it's some bullshit involved. I'm sorry. You just can't co-sign on everything. See, that's when you get people like Jesse Jackson naming everybody because he think everybody down with this bullshit. You see, you can't just go with somebody because they skin folk. This is the hardest lesson for American Indians to learn. That's what I've seen. They say they looking for anything. They have a savior, right? Because they done adopted colonizers God, like the adoption papers and everything, yo. Yet they still need some kind of narrative, even if it condemns them. Just give us an identity. We ain't had one in so long. We take the first one that comes, and the one that look like us, I guess it must be him. Okay, Moors, yeah. Tell me what I did, please, because I don't remember. So it's like, it's just such a desperate position. You all fucked up with the God, you all fucked up with the law, you all fucked up with the courts, and yet you want to take credit for your own. So basically, I see this is what I can't co-sign on. I know that when I realized what's happening to American Indians, I knew that there's no way that I would knowingly have done this to myself. I just don't see it. I never understood this legal system till now. I thought I did maybe, but I had no idea. No idea. I was so, and see, this is what I think American Indians don't want to have to say. They don't want to admit, I don't understand this system. It's complicated as fuck. I just don't know what it means. Just, I don't freaking know. But then you will say, oh yeah, I know that. We got Indians that they so Moorish that they want to come off as knowing it all. And, you know, I knew that. It's like falling down and saying, that didn't hurt. It's like, but why though? Oh, why didn't it hurt? Are you no longer even capable of having physical senses, let alone your working brain? Did the more make you such a straw man that you don't feel when you fall down a flight of stairs and can't get up? Um, it's I don't I'm not trying to pick on Indians like this. I just want them to know why I find a lot of what I'm hearing to be blank, 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 blank. It's not Taraji. The math is not mathing. Let's read this again. The General Court of Virginia orders John Punch now. These are Indians in this court, according to what Indians are saying, that this was our courts and it just got taken over by white people. Now, this is in 1640, so this is before the Constitution, right? But we were invaded before the Constitution, so this is still colonizer Moorish bullshit going on, right? In the treaties that we had, we didn't even have this kind of like the treaties was basically sit your ass over there and don't get up. That to me, that's what a treaty is. That's what an Indian was forced to sign. So it's not really a legitimate treaty because colonizer knew that he doesn't have to treaty with heathen because their God condemns what they see as heathen. That's why the treaties were like toilet paper. They just did, again, everything they do with Indians is just to string them along and make them think, yeah, you're going to get something out of this deal. And what do we get, Indians? What do we get by taking credit for this ratchet ass system? We get to look like our own worst enemy because we keep taking the identity of someone who looks like us. But it's not us because he wouldn't have to do all of this to take our land from us, you see? So even the Moor knows that America is not his. That's why he has to convince you to be him. So there'll be no birthright owners except what he wants to say, people that look like him. He don't care where you're from. As long as you look like him, that's how he wants to take your birthright, American Indian. It doesn't have to be a vicious break when you split from your Moorish identity. It just has to be solid. You don't have to beat anybody up. You don't have to have no big ass arguments. All you got to say is, you know what I realized? A Moor and an Indian are not one and the same because a Moor is from Morocco and Americans are from America. But when they marry into our family, all of a sudden, they want to teach us their history while they condemn ours. That's why we're not Moors. That's why they know that we're not them, although they will continue. They'll use it as a mantra because they put you under one of their word spells, one of their mantra of Iroquoian spells. Okay. The General Court of Virginia orders John Punch, a runaway black servant, to serve his master or his assigned. See, this read differently. I don't know. I think I read it differently somewhere else because what I read was that he was the first black person to be made a permanent slave. And we're not saying they're not saying he was African. They're just going to hope that you assume he was. But they're not saying that here. Uh, he was sentenced to a lifetime. And what they said was the reason why he was sentenced to lifetime slavery is because he tried to run away. Not that he tried to kill you know, his one of his master's people or nothing like that, because he tried to run away. So all you had to do was try to escape to be made a permanent slave in this system when it started. And they want me to think that Indians were down with this. See, even if Indians were down with it, what I'm saying is that you didn't know that they were going to flip the script and call you a slave master. You thought you was doing the Moors how they do everywhere they go, and it is how they do everywhere they go. But they had different plans. That's how I know Indians didn't design this, because they would have never accused themselves of slavery like the North did. And the North demonized the South and called them slave runners, slave owners, and all of that. Meanwhile, the North had slavery too. But I guess what they're trying to say is that they didn't make their slaves permanent. I don't know. The whole story is convoluted. But the main point is, why are Indians trying to break out of a system they created, God? Because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. That's what God tells me. I have to say it like that, but that's what the answer is. Uh, Wait a minute. So now you go further down and they're saying it's John Casser. But Punch was relegated to lifetime slavery for trying to run away. But I think they said he was. I think they're adding stuff too. I think I read somewhere else. That's what it was. I must have read somewhere else about John Punch. But the idea was he ran away. I believe that what I read was with two white men. The white men didn't get sentenced to a lifetime of servitude like he did. Indian court in Virginia, y'all got some splaining to do. Are you quote unquote civilized tribes? Is that what you're operating under? Because why would you enslave the black quote unquote man out of three men, two who were white? Why did your Indian court make the man who looks like you a permanent slave, but you didn't make the Caucasian runaways permanent slaves? If the Indians that built this system, please explain, please. And somebody gonna say, "Well, we made him a permanent slave because we didn't want him to leave. We want the white man to leave." Oh, please stop! Please stop! Please. Why did he want to run away if he was your family? Well, if some Indians are going to say, well, John was he was so precocious. He just never liked our family, but we like having him as an indentured servant. But Indians will. I find that it just make up anything. You just make it. You just reaching for straws and straw men, and you're not supposed to do that. That's commerce. You have law of the land on your side. You don't need commerce. Or Moore needs commerce to dominate the land so that he can dominate the land. But when Indians stand up, all of a sudden a new type of law comes on the land, and that's going to be the law of the land, and that's going to knock the Moor back onto Morocco. Because you're going to have to take hold of your resources, Indians. And we read about the Sultan who was so in need of American resources. This kind of explains why the Moors are so in our face. They had a Sultan that was so hungry for our resources, y'all, that he moved the capital in Morocco further west in Morocco so that he could be closer to receive all that the Moors were stealing, basically. Why do I say stealing? Because they weren't getting it directly from Americans. They were getting it from the corporation. See, Morocco recognized the United States. It did not recognize India. But if Indians don't know their place, they're going to say, yeah, we made a deal with Morocco, and they was the first one to recognize us as the United States. So that's why we like Morocco. And that's why this is called, secretly, we call America Morocco, because they recognized us first. Well, if we were Morocco, then why do they have to recognize themselves? Is that even allowed? Don't you have to be recognized by when you reckon all this freaking commercial recognition? But doesn't it have to be by another sovereign? So if America is Morocco, then why did Morocco have to recognize Morocco? That's like looking in the mirror and saying, "You go, girl." But no, you have to be a sovereign, girl. If we were already sovereign, if this was Morocco and it was already sovereign, why did it have to recognize itself? Now we are sovereign as Indians. I'm just saying. Did we somehow fall into one of those Moorish mouse traps and thinking that we Moors again? So now John Punch is made a permanent slave. And then we go to the third entry. It says, after earlier laws in Massachusetts Bay Colony, 1641. So are the Indians saying that they was the colony? Because isn't it the colony that's making up these laws? But Indians saying that we were the colony. Indians saying we we are the colony and we are the Indian too. Yeah, because half your family is Moors and half your family is American Indians, and you going what the Moors say. That's the only way that will work if you the slave and the slave master. After earlier laws in the Massachusetts Bay Colony, 1641, and Connecticut Colony, 1650, limited slavery to some extent, or limit slavery to some extent, a 1652 law in the colony of Rhode Island and Providence plantation clearly limits bond service to no more than 10 years or no later than a person attaining the age of 24. So I guess that's when the emancipation comes because you can be a slave up to 24. This is what Indians say in the laws that they made. Indians made these laws. The Indians that designed this legal system, or the ones who think they did, they're saying that in their law, you could be an indentured servant up to age 24. Okay, so then why did you make the emancipation? This is your system, right? So you made the law in Massachusetts that said you can be an indenture up to 24. But then you made the law later on for the emancipation of minors. Uh, I don't understand why y'all have such a confusing system you designed, and it's because you didn't design it. They found something in the Iroquois' little shop of horrors, and they ran with that and saying that means that all Indians created this system, and it's just not the case. Indians also don't know how to separate from Indians that they were at war with, because then they would have to say, oh, it wasn't all Indians that built this system. Even colonizer is pinpointing that it was the Iroquois Confederacy, something he found in the Iroquois Confederacy that made it possible for him to build this system or design this system somewhat based on the Iroquois. So let me ask y'all something. Is every Indian in America Iroquois? Okay, so does that mean that not all of us design this legal system? Am I missing something? Indians, please stop talking out two sides here. I hope, please, please get your own identity, please. I'm asking nicely. I'm trying. But the reason why I do it the way that I do is because I'm realizing my intelligence is being insulted by the narrative coming from Indians that's saying that we built the system. And so I'm offended. So it's not as the delivery is not as pristine, because I say it this way because this is what I'm being asked to deal with. I have to make this make sense when it doesn't. So I'm looking at this system, seeing that the entire South was made subject to the North when the North imposed the 14th Amendment. And I'm asking myself, well, if Indians built this system, how did the North get to do this thing? Why did you build a system where the North could do this to you when you don't want it to be done to you? Oh, they're going to come up with something stupid again, y'all. I just have to say, y'all, I'm tired of, I'm really tired of trying to, uh, it's like you being forced to be the only one that uses so, a minimum of common sense. We can't take credit for something that oppressed us to the extent where it could be said, then why should we give you reparations? If you're kicking your own ass, why should a foreign government give you reparations or give you any kind of props or anything? If you did this to yourself, then you got to pay you somehow. And I don't know how you're going to do that. What? Just go rob yourself. That's what you're going to have to do. And you ain't got shit anyway. So good luck with that. You don't got no land. You don't got nothing. Money ain't nothing. Mm-mm. A trust fund ain't even nothing when you're not controlling it in this in commerce because it's commerce. Having trust. How is we gonna leave a trust with an enemy and trust that it's going? Oh my God. How many ways does this corporation have to show that it despises Americans, so-called Indians? Before we get a clue that no, they can't hold no trust for us, and we expect that that's a legitimate thing. What it means is you're not controlling your land because they're seeing you as incapable and domestic dependent, a word that's not found in the Constitution. They just made it up in commerce. So what am I saying? This they are deferring. Well, once technically speaking, when Lincoln reorganized the corporation and made uh, the South that built this system surrender to what he wanted for this system, even though the South said they built it, and the Indians are saying, "No, we built this system." Yes, we did. You just say it. That doesn't make sense, no, but you just say it. I don't know why. I don't know why we would even want to be seen that way. But once uh so you created a system where Lincoln could reorganize it and come back and kick your ass in the South and basically get you to lose your land. And this is the system that Indians, when are you going to see that this system came to take and it never left that mission? The more it's here, the more you lost. And the more it's here, the more you get, the more foreign you become. You start out colored, you go to Negro, you go to black, and then you end up African American. And see, what you got to see is that is the design of the entire system. It gives you something that it seems like it's not that bad, but it's still not your first identity. And then little by little, you don't see that there's no way you would have designed this because you wouldn't have been able to be pulled down, led this far toward damnation, the damnation of being made foreign. You would have nipped that in the bud if you designed this system because you would have known immediately that's not something we would design, a system that can slowly genocide us. Why would we design that though? But then you say, yes, we did. We did. I did. The white man took it. Oh, give me a fucking break. White man had nothing to do with it. It's that damn black nigga that's looking you in your face and telling you you are more and you sick, looking like you in a trance saying, yes, master. Okay. That's who's doing this. And they were a priesthood. So, um, we're going to stop share for a minute. I want to find that document for, sort of like once and for all. Once and for all. Uh, let's see if we can. All right, I think I found it. Okay. Okay. So while we're at this, let's go to Zoom again. Let's see if we can share our screen. Did we jump and we didn't read something that we supposed to read? Yes, we did. Sorry. So we'll have to go back. This is what the Washita Moors, basically the Washita Moors are the 5 civilized tribes. This is what they say for Indians who need a refresher. The Amaru Washita Degdug Damundia Moors were originally a group of priests from Egypt, also known as the Dogon Olmec Samani. See, when you read that more Indians, I'm sorry, you're not entertaining Moors today. No. Not on any day really. We will entertain them when they go home and say they found a new allegiance to Morocco that is so strong and so powerful, and Allah is smiling upon for going home and staying their ass home and loving their home so much that America is like, oh, perish the thought of calling myself American Indian. Why don't I drink a little of my own Kool-Aid and be a real patriot? Put my money where my big mouth is and take my ass on over to Morocco and stay my ass there. And then name your God, Amen, and close it out. And nice knowing you, hasta la vista, baby, and all of that. Sayonara, whatever. If you like the Asiatic, okay, sayonara. So what they're saying, what they're trying to tell us is that these Indians were indoctrinated by priests. The priests have a history that they use it like silly putty. They just mold it how they need it to be molded to push certain narratives. So they influence the 5 civilized tribes, and that's why the 5 civilized tribes think that we were just born into this priesthood's religion. Meanwhile, the dude that's called the father of monotheism, his name is Akhenaten. A lot of people don't want to go back into time memorial because they don't want to deal with these facts. Akhenaten was basically your first Moor. Your first, shall we say, the first one to take it to the level that he did. He took it so far that we Americans called him a heretic. He took it, he went so far across the street with it that we Indians called him a heretic. But then from there, he's associated with Moses. Now, we're not going to go deep into this. Some people really resent that connection. I see the connection. I don't, we don't have to take it any further than that, but there's definitely a common ground there because they are both monotheistic and they are both leading people with a new religion. Excuse me. The Egypt didn't know about this religion that Akhenaten was bringing. So he was labeled a heretic. You can look it up. Was Akhenaten called a heretic? Let's start there. If Heru is talking bullshit, let's just go to the bullshit artist and see who said it, because a lot of people have said it. It's rather he's notoriously known for being called a heretic, y'all. I didn't call him. I just looked at his history and did the math, y'all. The math adds up to this. We were not monotheistic because the dude that introduced it to us, we saw him as a heretic. Akhenaten was the first known, like massively known monotheistic king priest, whatever you want to call it. He was and he had the Amen priesthood. That's why the religion that he introduced still calls upon Amen. He was backed by the Amen priesthood. Now they're trying to say he was against the Amen priesthood. And I'm saying he started out being Amenhotep. He couldn't have been that far against them. If that's what he was when he first came on the scene, he was one of them. He just happened to have a difference of opinion of some sort. And I think perhaps he was one of those kings like King James that said, fuck the priest. It's all about me. I have divine right as a king. And the priest said, well, who do you think gave you the quote unquote divinity in your divine right? Hello, priesthood. I ain't mad at you. You know what you do. You know the authority you have. It's just that the rest of the world don't. We think you them old black men that sit over there with long beards down to your feet and talk about, could you help me with my pudding? No. Could you help me with my diaper? No. You're gonna sit in that shit. You're gonna sit in it as long as needed till you learn your lesson. You are not anything holy to American Indians. Come on now, somebody talk about it. We call you heretic. Heretic. So I'm just trying to give a little more perspective on who the five civilized tribes are taking the doctrine from. A priest, they were Moors who were originally priests, but they influenced the Indians of the South to break away from their Algonquin heritage. Algonquin is the oldest language in the Eastern Woodland. That includes everything east of the Mississippi, y'all. That's the Eastern Woodland. The Eastern Woodland is everything east of the Mississippi, but we find that Algonquins go even west, further west of the Mississippi. So the Algonquins are much bigger than this system would like to admit, because we were not limited to the Eastern Woodland area, which is the area east of the Mississippi to the edge of this America. Okay? All of them were Algonquin, and they spread past the Mississippi. So it is the Algonquins that are being minimized because they're having branches of their people being misled by a group of priests from Egypt that we kicked out. We kicked those priests out, and they somehow brought their ass back to southeast Woodland and started influencing these Indians that are known as Moorish Indians. Yeah, you're Moorish because you're taking on the doctrine of Moor. And they are using you to genocide all the Indians. It's like they put on a sock puppet that looks like an Indian, and they are punching out all the other Indians with these Washita Degda called the Bundia Moors. Because we see skin folk and we just give it, oh, you my brother, pow, pow, knocked out with the bullshit, knocked out with the indoctrination. And we like to talk about this Al-Moroccan government that fell in 1956 with the abolishment of the consular court when Black people accepted civil rights. And we talked about this. Why would you leave when we accept civil rights when that's the worst thing we could have done? If anything, you should have stayed and steered us back to, okay, it was 1956. You could have steered us back to Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the Constitution. But you don't do that. You keep steering these civilized the Moors back to commerce. And then you use these civilized tribes to steer us further into commerce, ignoring the damn Constitution that knew that we were not part of this. But again, the question is, why would these Moorish Indians government fall when Black people accepted civil rights? My question is, did you see what they were going through before the civil rights they were running to and still running for appeared? So that means if we had an Al-Moroccan government here, it wasn't treating us right, y'all, because we were looking for civil rights. Now, if we had an Al-Moroccan government that was for us, we wouldn't have been looking for no civil rights. See how common sense be doing? Don't get mad at me. Get mad at the common sense, y'all. And that's the common sense of the ancestors. What, Morris, let me ask you, Why would we go scurrying for civil rights if you was doing right by us? Did you require us to be Islamic? Is that what you're trying to say? And we were never that because we were not monotheistic. So what's going on, Moore? Y'all confusing me because that's all you can do is confuse an issue, so you can do the what do they call it? The what do they call it? Hegelian, the Hegelian dialect, y'all. Create the problem to create the solution. That's already created. You just need the proper problem for the solution that has already been created. Sort of like what they did with the whole pandemic. The last of the Al-Moroccan government fell in 1956 with the abolishment of the consular court. When Black people accepted it, so they're not going to say whether they were Indians or Negropeans. They want to lump us all together as Black people. That's why your government fell, you dumbass. Because you keep trying to make two people one for your benefit, not theirs. You wanted us to take civil rights because you knew that they were inferior to our birthright. Our birthright is hinted at in Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. Here is a definition of a consular court. It's a tribunal convened by public officials who reside in a foreign country. So right there, the Moors are saying them being in America is them residing in a foreign country to protect the interests of their country, Morocco, for the settlement of civil cases based on situations that happened in the foreign nation, America, because that's where their consular court was, remember? And we took civil rights. So that means they were here on American Indian land, masquerading as us back then, too, right? Influencing us and indoctrinating us with the bullshit, right? So again, their court is a tribunal convened by public officials who reside in a foreign country called America to protect the interests of their country, which is Morocco, for the settlement. So they're here to protect the interests of who? Which country? Morocco. Not America. A town in Indiana is not a country in Africa. So a town, what I'm trying to say is a town would fall under the state's laws. But this thing that they're talking about, this foreign country and America, they're calling America the foreign country. So that rules out the Morocco and Indiana, right? Because that wouldn't be foreign. In Morocco and Indiana is not a foreign country. It's part of a state. It's foreign to Indians. A tribunal convened by public officials. So that was an Al-Moroccan public official. Reside in a foreign country. America's a foreign country, but it's also the country that Morocco recognized first. So it's a country that Morocco is trying to get in bed with, right? Because it's not Morocco. If America was Morocco, Morocco wouldn't try so damn hard to get in bed with America. You see? Because it'd be like this, you just part of my whole shit. I don't gotta make no special, you know what time it is, right? And your court would not just collapse because it would be the law of the land. If you had Al-Moroccan court here, or whatever you call it, and you was indigenous to America, that court would stand. But you saying it fell when we took civil rights. And you were okay with us taking civil rights because you never steered us away from them. Every Negro we knew was telling us to take civil rights. So where was the Moors telling us not to? They said that their government fell when we took civil rights. Y'all didn't fight to keep us. You just had us go into the beast and said, "Oh well, uh, uh, que sera, que sera." So you're not really that dedicated to American Indians, are you, Morris? By your own admission, you're dedicated to Morocco, but not the one in America, because it there was a Morocco before that one in America. It's the one that signed the peace of treaty and friendship in 1787, because the Morocco in America didn't exist till 1856, right? That's what you told us in this very document. And then the one in Africa didn't exist till 1956, I believe. Okay. The last, ooh, ew, ooh. Okay, 1956. Isn't that when the Morocco in Africa was created? Okay. Um, I'm kind of jumping around. Forgive me. Um, Somewhere in here, he tells us when the Morocco in Africa came to be. I just have to find it. Okay. Uh, we'll have to do a word search real quick because I feel like I want to find this. 1956, 1956, right? Three. Oh boy. Is it not here? Okay. Why do we move the page all the way over there? This, um, okay. Okay. Somehow, like I must be confusing this with another document, but the Morocco in Africa was the last one, according to what they're telling us. But the Moors go back to the 1300s. So they were in Spain. And I'm guessing when they got kicked out of Spain, that's when they started Morocco. But America was not known when so there couldn't have been a Morocco in America if um, America was seen as the New World, right? Um, we're going to take a quick pause, and I shall back. If you hear music in the background, I don't think you should, but my neighbors are having a Caribbean blast, and the music is good. I'm having images of crashing the party. That music. Ugh. But let's okay, so we were reading the document that it seems like it's this. I feel like we're hearing from the horse's mouth, but this is one of those documents that will remain mostly unlooked at because I think it's just telling a lot. It's what it is what this I think it's an Indian spilling the beans where a Moor might not want him to. But he's so infused with the indoctrination that he doesn't see that he's really the narrative that he's giving is a compromised narrative. Okay, so all right. So what I was looking for and not finding is where he says something about because the Africa Morocco was founded in 1956. I'm going to stick with the one that was founded in 1856 or something like that. But unfortunately, you can't make those kind of leaps, especially when we know that you had an existence as Moors in Spain. Now, because you got put out allegedly, however that went down, by your mulatto offspring, because you was dominating them in a way that they didn't feel was justified, I guess. But it still led to you leading them to us. So if you get rejected by them, why would you lead them to us, Moors? Could have took them somewhere else. Um, it just seemed like it worked in the benefit of the Moors, probably more so than it benefited Caucasian Europeans because the Moors can blend in with us, you see, and they can start to claim that they're American. This is why I believe this is what it was all meant to lead to. It's just too convenient. And then you have Morocco and Africa being the first to recognize America, the United States. So you lead your mulatto offspring to our shores. And later, when he sets up the government that he learned from you, or you help him set it up, however that, because you made the republic, right? You did tell us about that in this document. Well, when you and your offspring come and create this government, um, okay, what I'm trying to say is that I think the narrative is basically that these were colonizers that came to America and they were Caucasian. That's the sort of the superficial version of the story. But then you have a Morocco recognizing the system that invaded our lands. And Indians don't see that that's a problem. That being connected with a Moor means that you're connected with the entity that recognized your colonizer system, which ended up dominating only you and changing only American Indians' identity to a lesser standing on the land. Um, Indians or Americans, they do not have they're not limited to commerce like a Moor is. Like I've said already, a Moor has to dominate your land with commerce because that is his vehicle. Commerce is the vehicle of a Moor when he can't dominate your birthright. And that's the odd thing. As much as he says that he is you and you are he, he's still using commerce. He can't claim the birthright, Indians. There seems to be something preventing him from doing that. And I just think it's common sense, really, because you can't be from Africa and be from America at the same time. And you can't have an allegiance to both when they're at enmity with the original people. You can't be the original people and be for the people that are against the original people, like the Moors. The Moors love this commerce. I don't care how it looks, y'all. And we know they love it because that's the only law they refer to. The most they will offer us is to operate in private. And we've already deduced operating in private is still operating in commerce, and as well as it's not constitutional. The Constitution does not say anything about citizens operating in private. If anything, it was originally that's what you were. But then when commerce comes along, now you have public and private. It was all supposed to be private with this system. But now they're relegating private to when an Indian starts to get the ancestral nudge to break out of this system, then the more offers you to operate in private, so you'll at least make a whole lot of money. What the Indian is forgetting is that's colonizer monopoly dollars. You want control of the land. See, Indians see dollar signs a lot of times when nothing is worth more than your land. Because if you don't have land, what is a dollar going to do for you? Buy you a boat to live in the ocean? If you don't have land, what is a dollar going to do for you after it runs out? Does your land run out? So which is more valuable? If we just need some perspective, the Moor is well aware of the value of your land. The Moor is the one roaming around the earth, as he calls it in his book, like a devouring wolf, whatever that they try to put their identity on other people. We know this, right? But that's their identity, the devouring men and women in a completely commercial entity, a commercial paradigm where no people will be connected to their lands because their lands are going to be caught up in commerce. And then what's going to happen is the nobility that the Moors are serving or subject to, they're going to be considered the owners of the land, and you will be a serf upon it. Although it was your land, because you are just enjoying colonizer dollars so much. But when he starts having his bankruptcies and his recessions, then the money is nothing to you, right? So what is more important? The colonizer dollars or you owning your land where you will always get compensated? When you have colonizer dollars, he can inflate it, deflate it. You holding a big balloon one day and a flat banana the next day. It's not going to work, American Indians. It's not going to work, American Indians. You got to see the true value of money. That money, lately it's dawned on me too. The resources of our land is one thing, but I'm becoming more aware that it's actually having living slaves. I think that's even better than resources because the slaves will work the resource. If you just have resources, you're going to have to work them resources. But if you have slaves in plenty, they look that's why the Moors are infatuated with large batches of land, because they see a large slave pool. It's the land, but it's really the possibility of it being filled with slaves, working the land as serfs, so that the Moorish, the nobility on top of the Moors will get all the compensation that should be going to each of the people of each of these lands. But instead, the people of the lands are basically doing without, struggling, and none of it makes sense. Like countries that have resources, Why are American Indians like the least make the least money in America when this is all taking place on their land, and they at least should get rent for all this foreign presence on ancestral lands? We always say that though. Um, so what we want to get here, and we'll just do it because we talk about this document a lot because it's really that important. It's the Washita Moors speaking for themselves without Indians who don't know really the true history of the the Washita Moors. But they're telling you why they consider themselves part African, and it's because of the African origin of Moors. And not only is Africa their chosen origin, but again, it's their chosen origin. The Moors could have easily said that they originated in America, but they didn't. They want to say it now because Indians are being awakened. But as we always say, that wasn't what they were singing in just a few centuries ago. They did not claim America because in their world, America didn't exist. It was a new world. In the Moorish world, there was no such thing as America. That's what he was telling all the other nations. And then when we do get, quote unquote, discovered, they're being told that we are heathen because we don't believe like they believe. They don't know that America has a history and a spiritual system that's older than theirs because the Moors have convinced them that we're like a new world. We don't know stuff. We're backward. That's why they don't know about. But that means your God is young because we're an older people. If your God don't know us, it's because he's young. He should know the oldest people. And Africa ain't the oldest people. That's just where these priests got expelled to, basically. Yeah. Um, so you gotta get when they tell you about their court, that gives you a key that they're foreigners. It's their consular court. We read this before. Is a tribunal convened by public officials who reside in a foreign country to protect the interests of their country, which is Morocco, for the settlement of civil cases. Now, we took civil rights and they handle civil cases, but they said when we took civil rights that caused them to be abolished. Why couldn't you still handle civil cases of your own people? Because we're not your people. You watched as Indians took an inferior civil rights, and you knew better because you know this law like the back of your hand. Most Moors know all about these commercial laws. They know about law of the land too, but they can't claim law of the land because they are foreigners, like we just read. So they were here to handle the interests or to hold the interests of their country, which is Morocco, based on situations happening in the foreign. So in other words, they were looking out for Muslims. Okay, let's just cut to the chase. If you were an American Indian that took on their religion, then they might have your back. But when you, even as I guess as a Muslim, they saying when you took civil rights, Allah says goodbye, good night. Why didn't they say just for the fact that you were Islamic? Because they all Islamic. And if you were us, then that means you say we was Islamic. That's how I know that Indians done lost their damn mind. See, they're not saying nothing about the religion here. They talking all about the commercial, right? Yeah, they don't talk about that part. Because you best believe they was Islamic, yo. They wanted they basically, I would have to say, really are co-signing on their mulatto children to be quote unquote the Hebrews. But they'll use it on us when they need us to, try to raise our self-esteem by saying we the, chosen by their God. But really, that position, they gave it to who they wanted to have it already, and that is their mulatto offspring. And we're not blaming the mulatto offspring because it's the daddy that's doing all the wheeling and dealing, trying to be a slick, shiesty, greasy, grimy, you know, snake. That's what Iroquois mean, snake people. Um, that's what Algonquins call them, snake people. Um, a tribunal, okay, based on situations happening in the foreign nation, and which is held pursuant to the authority granted by treaty. The 1787 Morocco Creature Prejudice. That's the question. If in 1787 there was no Morocco in America and no Morocco in Africa, so where exactly the hell was this Morocco? In the windmills of their Moroccan mind. The windmills. The windmills of their Moroccan mind. I think the Morocco might have been a ship that docked in New York harbor or something. I don't know. Because they took New York City from Algonquin. Now, we didn't call it New York City. It was just simply Algonquin ancestral land, as opposed to Iroquois who broke off, and they were in New York State. They weren't even Southern Indians, y'all. The Cherokee held down the Iroquois presence in the southern states. And I think the Cherokee are really originally the ones that were actually from the South. And the other Indians were Johnny come latelys. I think the Cherokee, I believe that I gotta do and see of the two linguistic groups, which is older, Cherokee or Muskogean. Because the other tribes of the civilized tribes are Muskogean. Cherokee is the only Iroquois speaking one. And I think the Cherokee might have had to formulate a northern Iroquois presence because the illusion, I think, is to make like our enemy have to be close to us, right? So you got to put them in the north so you can say that we are in the north. When the truth is, Algonquins are actually Southern Indians, not North American Indians. I mean, in terms of uh, the Northeast, we did have Northeast, but we were also Southeast Indians as well as mid middle American Indians. We had a presence again that stretched beyond the Mississippi further west. The Iroquois were just a little dots in the midst of Algonquin land. So because they were not the original, to be that spread out means you were here longer. That's the only way you're going to have all that cover that much land east and west of the Mississippi because you've been around a while. Iroquois were new, and so they were never bigger than the Iroquois. I'm sorry, than the Algonquin Indians that they broke off from. Iroquois is an Algonquin word, so Iroquois are a break off of Algonquins, basically. They are. By reason that Algonquin is the oldest language in the Eastern Woodland. That's what we're basing it. Okay. But give the Moors a time. They will weave some new tales to try to refute the stuff that makes common sense. They will come up with some, you know, even more greasy, grimy stuff and make something else. You know, they just have to keep diverting. They just all they gotta do is cast the shadow of doubt. That's their legal system too. all they gotta do is cast shadow. It doesn't even have to be real. It could be them making a shadow puppet, and as long as they could cast that doubt, it keeps people in a state of confusion. So there's a lot in this document that, again, I think this is an American Indian who adopted the Moroccan narrative, but he's telling it in a way that I don't think the Moors would really approve of, because it's really showing them up. You know what I'm saying? It's telling that they're influenced by priests. It's saying that they consider themselves a foreign nation serving a Morocco that was not in America. And once we took civil rights, they said, bye bye. If you was us, you would have stayed and fought. And not only that, you would have persuaded us to not take civil rights, because you should have been directing us to Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. If we are talking about the year 1956, you should have been steering us to the Constitution. Instead, they were steering us toward commerce, y'all. So, okay, so we keep stopping, but let's see. Uh, yeah, it's just the fact that 1787 Treaty of Peace and Friendship, it just so happens to coincide with the first Constitution in America, which I always found really rather telling too, because it just seems like the Constitution is popping up at the same time at this as this treaty of peace. I'm sorry, treaty of peace and friendship. It's just kind of not a very pleasant thought, because it makes me associate the Constitution with this treaty of peace and friendship in some kind of way. Uh, I guess we'd have to get the full dates of both, the full date, not just the year, the months and the day, or whatever. Um, because again, if it's a treaty, if it was a treaty, if the Constitution was a form of a treaty somehow, and it was this treaty of peace and friendship, it's still misnaming the people when it comes to America. We should have just been called Americans. Um, and ooh, I mean, the free persons, I think that's okay, because they're all basically European and Negropean, which is distinguishable from American. But the fact that the Constitution doesn't refer to any real nation is rather, it's just offsetting, yo. That's, again, if we designed the system, we would have had to have referred ourselves as American, not Indian. A foreigner making this system is going to call us Indians, because the foreigner's job is to un-American us. Okay? So, okay. The consular court exercises criminal jurisdiction in some instances, but its determinations are reviewable by the courts of the home government in Morocco. The last of the U.S. consular court of Morocco, did you hear that? The consular court is a court of Morocco. And they're saying, well, how we know that they were a foreign Morocco in America is because they're saying we took civil rights. That happened. The civil rights movement happened where? Okay, so then the foreign the foreign country that they're talking about has to be here where the civil rights movement took place. And they're saying once we did that, they just hot-footed out of here. because why they would be able to leave because now Indians don't exist. Once Indians take civil rights, their job, the Moors' job is completed. They're not sovereign anymore. Um, so I believe that's why their government could just pack up and leave because the mission was accomplished. Indians have been made foreigners on their own land. Boys, we have succeeded in our mission. We can go home now and love up on our sultan and chase him around the coffee table for coffee because the coffee's so good. It's some rich Moroccan coffee. Just say that's how much they love they nobility, right? They that it's all about sultans, right? Does that sound something like what Indians would do? No, right? But that's what these five civilized tribes. This is all talking about the five. What is the name of this again? The Washita. So what are the Washita effectively going with? A Moroccan version of history. And when I read this part, we jumped down, but here I also like to see here. So we figured out they're priests, right? So they're having a spiritual influence, civilizing Indians to follow their religion, which is monotheistic. These are monotheistic priests, okay? Now they're claiming Mayan and Olmec only because their presence went that far back. It doesn't mean that they agreed with the religion of the Mayans. They're just saying we were there too, but that's before we started formulating monotheism. Now we got a new deluxe, and we bringing that to your nearest church for you to worship our gods. Indians were not within our system. We didn't have a problem with people honoring their ancestors. The problem came when they also asked us to get rid of ours. That's when we saw Akhenaten as a heretic because he was negating the existence of older ancestors that the Indians knew. And he wanted us to all worship the deity that he was creating for foreigners that looked like the foreigners and didn't look like American Indians. If you notice, ancient Timerian deities are all copper colored mostly. They started doing something where they would have uh they would show like as if the women were lighter skinned. But I think that's the dynasty just showing that, they that's how they were looking to lighten up by, they were always in the business of taking their melanated skin and lightening it up to create foreign men and women on that would take our place, or they would use those foreign men and women as the battle axe against us, and then the whole time saying that they're on our side while watching us fight against Caucasians when the Caucasian is not the CEO. The Caucasian is not the head honcho. The Caucasian is not the architect. He just executes what the architect has designed. And a lot of them are not cool with that once they find out. They're really not cool with it a lot. That's why you would have a lot of them, marching for Black Lives Matter. Well, they're, by and large, they the world doesn't know us as American Indians, but they go when they show their support, it'll show up like they'll be calling us black, which is not cool. But hey, when you have the Moors constantly trying to like meld themselves into Indians, that's when the Indians get confused. And that's when people get confused about who we are. They call us black and African American. So Amaru is actually a corruption of Amaru. Uh-oh. Which is the root America. No. America is usually a corruption of Amen Ra Ta. No, didn't recognize Amen. We recognize Ra, if anything. And then the priesthood created the deity called Amen. And at first it was, look how they erase deity. We talk about this. It starts off Ra. They put a word in front of Ra, so they are disrespecting Ra. They are secondarying Ra, like they secondary American Indians by calling us African Americans. So our true identity is being made second, just like they did with Ra. So Ra starts out Ra, and then the priesthood come up with Amen Ra. Over time, they would drop Ra. So what's left? The thing that they stuck in front of it. That's what the term African American is doing to Indians. It's taking our true identity, Ra, well, when we use this as a correlation, putting a word in front of it, African, we call African American. And if what happened to the deity happens to us, over time, we're just going to be called African. That's what they did that's how they disrespected this. This is why they were called heretics, y'all. They were dishonoring original ancestors for new ones, and then they would erase the old. Now, the lovely thing about polytheism, no deity gets erased. Now, it's your choice whether you want to rock with that deity, and that is your choice. They say we have free choice, but then they don't want to give us all the choices, right? So, but no ancestor gets genocided in a polytheistic setting. In monotheism, the ancestor is going to get renamed and then he's going to get replaced. It's like a mantra on my channel at this point, really. You all know I say this all the damn time, right? But I said like they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? You had to have repetitive actions to get it built. So now as we look to un-Romanize ourselves, that's going to take repetitive work. When we read this, we got to let it go in one ear and out the other, because there's a alternate story, and that alternate story is what Horace Butler talks about. He says we were called Tameri. It had nothing to do with Amaru, because Amaru did not exist when Indians were rocking in the Americas. Amaru is a 2900 BC deity, and we had 3400 BC deities. So Amaru is not old enough for America to be named after it. Amaru is a dragon, and in our system, the dragon was our enemy. We called him Apep. But over the years, again, the priests take these deities and start to change them up and erase them, rename them and erase them. So again, when you think about Ra, Ra was first known. They make up something called Amen, put it in front of Ra, disrespecting the name of the deity, and the whole energy of the deity is disrespected. And then the world says amen. And every time they say amen, Ra is being genocided because it was put in front of his name. His name was made second, and then his name was pulled out altogether. That's what the priesthood does. They do this, and it's fun and games to them. But we took it seriously because we were very spiritual people. We did not want to dishonor our ancestors, but the priesthood were leading us to do just that. And now they have us basically worshiping Jupiter and Zeus, Jesus. I owe that one to Walter Williams. I ain't never heard it broke down that way, but it makes the most sense. Jupiter and Zeus. Those are Roman gods, right? Okay, put them together. What do you have? Jesus. Jesus. That's the only way that name makes sense to me now. It truly is. But you can't say that, right? Because people flip their lids and stuff. That's the only breakdown of that name that would make sense for the time that it showed up in Roman times. There was no Spain in Roman time. So that's why it couldn't have been a Spanish name, Jesus. No, had to be a after something Roman. Rome goes back to like the 4th century. Spain is in the 14th, like these maybe the yeah, like the 1300s Spain, I would say. But Rome, again, that goes back to the fourth, what? And that's at the cusp of the BC and AD time frame, right? Because that's when they're saying Jesus was born. So his name comes right in the middle of BC, that cross section of BC and AD. And that's how far the Church of Rome goes. So there was no Spain. I'm saying that to say Spain was not a thing back then. If it was not a popular thing. Whatever Romans were speaking, that was the language of that time. And so what I'm saying is there shouldn't have been anything called Jesus because there was no Spanish. It was Rome, and what Rome had was Jupiter and Zeus. And the priesthood liked to mix and match deities like we just saw with Amen Ra. Now, I've also said it that I think Amen is a nod to Min, M-I-N. And I say, look up Min, and that is what the priest may be actually calling on. Look up Min, M-I-N. I'd say that in another video. I guess it's a sort of, we're repeating, right? We have to do repetitive. Got to be repetitive. So that's what we want to say about that. Amaru did not exist either in 3400 BC. Amaru is more of a Sumerian deity, and Yeah, it's just that they didn't call him Amaru, they called him Ningazita. But then they say when he comes to America, he's called Amaru. Well, no, because America is older than Amaru. America is older than the deity known as Amaru. Amaru is being spoken about in Sumerian's time frame, not in Tamarian time frame. Time frame. Tamari was what America was called before they reversed it. They did what they did with Ra. They took Ta and put it at the end. So Tamari became, according to Horace Butler, Amerita. You see how they do the word spell? You take the first thing, if you want to make it like a second born and take away the first birthright, you have to take the first part of the name and put it back in the back of the word. So Tamari becomes Amerita, and over time, America. That makes more sense to me over this Amaru stuff. Why? Again, because Amaru is not old enough for America to be named after Amaru. Tamari. That became Amerita because they took the TA off and they did the reverse word spell to make the thing last, make it new world. That's how the priests do it, y'all. Now I don't know what the prayers they say, but I know the action is you have to change the order of the name. You have to take the first part of the name and make it the last. Okay? And that's how I think they do with most things because they're working a spell, the priest. And that's the one sort of advantage they have. But once your spiritual eyes are open, they have to start shaking in their boots. When they got us, they got us. But over time, when the ancestors get the momentum in our spirit, then we start to see how all spells work. Especially if they were used to take our birthright. Those are the ones that are critical. Because we have to see what happened in order to avoid it happening again. So the 1787 Morocco Treaty of Peace and Friendship was a means to try to stop all the fighting over the land. So the Moors brung the Europeans to the table. Are Moors Indians? No. So are they inviting other foreigners to our country? Yes. It wasn't Indians inviting. It was the Moors inviting. Indians wouldn't have done that. If Indians don't get along that well, how they look inviting strangers? If Indians were having disagreements, what would make them think to want to add more to this fire? No, the Moor would do that because he's going to bring chaos so he can create order from the chaos. But the order that he creates is disorder. So it's just a higher form of chaos. 1787 Morocco Treaty of Peace and Friendship was a means to try to stop all of the fighting over the land. So the Moors brung the Europeans to the table. Why? To form a peaceful two-system government. So this is why I question Indians. Are you sure that you built this system, or was it a story told to you by your husband or wife who is a full-fledged Moor and trying to become one and the same as you through your marriage? You got to keep your identity, English. You have a birthright to maintain. And you got somebody that's trying to compromise that hold that you have. The 1787 Morocco Treaty of Peace and Friendship was a means to try to stop all the fighting they're talking about the Americas, y'all. So the Moors brung the Europeans to the table to form a peaceful two-system government, one for the Moors and one for the Europeans. Okay. Kind of drifting off there. It's a little late, and I've been at this. Let's see now. We want the Moors brung the Europeans to the table to form a peaceful two-system government, one for the Moors, one for the Europeans. Indians are nowhere part of this government, according to the five civilized tribes. And what's the narrative being broadcast all over Indian country? It's the narrative of compromised Indians that are considered civilized by the Moors that civilized them, making them Christians. That's what civilization does to Indians. They can't be what they were. They have to take on their Negropeans identity. So the government, the republic and the democracy was brought here by Moors for Moors and Europeans. Evidence of this two-system government can be found on the back of a dollar bill. Notice the two seals. You see one of a pyramid with an eye above it, which was the Moorish seal. And the other seal is that of okay. You see one of the pyramid with an eye above it, which was the Moorish seal, and the other seal is that of an eagle holding 13 arrows, which is the European seal. I'm sorry, 13 arrows, which is the European seal. Another example of this two-system government is the consular court, which it was the Moorish court system. So why are you not here anymore? But we have the European system, and you haven't done anything to get rid of that because you brought it here, right? So when you bring your offspring here, you start to meld and become us. That's why you're not talking about yourself anymore, because you're expecting Indians to be the new you. But you do all the talking, and the Indians just sit there and nod their head with their mouth tied shut because they're heathen still. Oh yeah, you call Christians, but you're treated like heathen. How so? Well, look at how you're treated. Once you took on your Moorish family's religion, you should have elevated. But it's like you're still looked down upon, American Indian. You're still treated like you have no power here because they're using the doctrine of discovery against you until you say otherwise, until you let it be known that that doctrine was repudiated and any of that activity now is unlawful. So it was a Moorish court system. So it was a Moorish legal system, not an Indian one. The last one was abolished in 1956 according to the above definition, and this consular court was granted its authority by treaty. That is the 1787 Morocco Treaty of Peace and Friendship. The Europeans had and still do have oh, okay. We're taking too many pauses. So we gotta look to close this out. We're getting tired, y'all. So he's confirming what I just said. So if you and I are one and the same Moors, why are you allowing us to be dominated? Like you say, the Europeans had and still do have their court system, but it's just their system now. And that is a commercial system that the Moors know like the back of their hand. They know this commerce system, y'all. But again, they want their offspring to be the the heirs, not American Indians. That's the other thing about getting in bed with Moors. Your offspring, Indians, if you really think about it, your offspring are being genocided off their land, but the Moors' offspring, the mulattoes that they like to call white, that's that's why their system of government is still here, according to this Washita Moore who wrote this. Not Indians saying it. This is from the horse's mouth, an actual one who understands the Moorish system a lot better than Indians do. Just like this government, Indians don't understand how this legal system works, especially if they're going to operate in private. And that was hard. That's hard enough to try to comprehend. That private BS, which is unconstitutional, it's not the same as having control over your land in the least. It's saying, thank you, colonizers, for giving me a little bit more money. Thank you. And no control of my land. Thank you. I love you. Mm. The Europeans had and still do have their court systems, but it's just their system now. So what he's saying is once we took those civil rights that he sat back and let us take, their job was done. Their mulatto offsprings are now in charge. We have surrendered to something inferior as federal United States citizens. The whole system now is going to be operating under commerce, but Europeans will always have more. They can survive a commercial system because they are paid more per capita. They give them more opportunity to have access to wealth, and it stays in their it stays in their family a little better than it stays because we too busy paying bills and shit, paying taxes that we ain't supposed to be paying and shit. At this point, we shouldn't be paying for anything because that would be our reparations. Uh, just give consider everything that I need already paid for in advance and just give it to me as I come for it. Sort of like what you did with the immigrants when you gave them a card that just they didn't have to worry about a thing. They card never declined, right? So little by little, you read this document. I just pulled it up. We might not read the whole thing, but here are more. This is the horse's mouth. He's telling you how they got married into this the Moors. It was Empress Veridachi, Tiara, Washita, Turner, Gosson, El Bay. Oh my God. Wrote in her book, The Return of the Ancient Ones, and you know, uh, blacks over here in America were already here before, blah, blah, blah. So that's you can say you were here, right? In the Moorish system, you can say you were here, but because you now share an identity with Moors, that's going to not be given the weight that it should be given because the Moors like riding on your back saying, well, yeah, you and me was first, right? But then when it comes to you keeping your legacy, no, the Moor ain't giving that to you. You have to be basically under his European, like he just said. The Europeans had and still do have their court system, but it's just their system now. What do we have? Well, they just told us they left us alone once we took civil rights. So they hot footed back home with the home that they truly love in Morocco and Africa and left us here to be dominated by their offspring. The end. And then when you read the book of Yaqub that says they're here to genocide 97% of American Negroes, that's another word for Indians, y'all, in their playbook. Well, now you see why the Caucasian offspring was uh they was being sicked on us by Moors, black Moors. They're using Caucasians again as the battle axe, the bio weapon against American Indians. They're sitting back eating their popcorn. We fighting something that we shouldn't be fighting because the more is going to support that entity, that European from on the sidelines and give us a lot of mouth lip service. Meanwhile, we don't have any government. The ones we're reading about are all from Moors that to keep peace between on the land. Yeah, that once you back down the Indian, you could find a little peace because you think that we're not going to come back and take our birthright because you're going to beat us down with the BS and left us with no court because you said the Europeans still have their system. What happened to your Indian system, Moors? Oh, we too heathen to have our own system, right? We got to leave that to you. And how do? You hot-footed out of here when we take civil rights as if we have arrived with civil rights, yet we are being treated worse now, as I said before, with civil rights than we ever was treated. At least back then we knew we didn't have no standing. Now we're being told we do, and that thing is as elusive as the butterfly of love. So yeah, we're gonna end here, but this is where he's talking about how they married into the imperial marriage. It became official in 1795 with the Spanish King Louis and God. So that's who's taking over your American Indian legacy because you're not talked about as an Algonquin. You're not talked about, in your songs. They were good. I'm sorry, y'all. I am sleep talking. That's what you call sleep talking. There's just no way to back out of that. Fuck up. Okay. I don't know why I keep trying to talk when I can't even stay on topic because I'm like half asleep. Pardon. Yeah. So we're trying to say, wow, we try and talk with one eye open. That the American Indian, the only thing we get is genocided and a foreign entity invited by another foreign entity that looks like us. They are going, everything is going to be routed to them. And then we're going to be replaced by the skin folk that look like us called Moors. That's why they get a little quiet. It's like invasion of the body snatchers. You lay the pod down next to the person, and at night when everybody's sleeping, the little veins come off the pod and suck the life out of the American Indian. Then next morning, boom, you have a new Moorish American Indian talking all about how the Moorish version of the story, and loving the fact that the European is now the new American in their perfect world. America is the sacrifice. American Indians are the sacrifice, the perpetual sacrifice for the wrongdoings of the Moors. And then they get us to be a willing sacrifice because we have the model of Jupiter in the form of Jesus. So now we have a working model of how to be a martyr and a living sacrifice, which means your life, you just living to provide your life force to a foreigner that's here to take your place. And you're just here to give him, a little bit of some of your, like in the Stepford Wives, some of your characteristics. So it'll look like you, walk like you a little bit. Well, it won't look like Sorry, that's the one thing it won't do. But it will at least have some of your love, your slang and all of that, and walk like you and talk like you, but not maybe not look like you. Uh, and that's when the Moors will become the like the earth father of all living things once they get American Indians to agree to be a sacrifice. Remember, Indians, you just get a home in heaven, but on earth, someone else is going to have your home, right? That's the big gift you get is, well, once we use you as a sacrifice, then you get a mansion in heaven. But here, can we give that to our mulatto offspring, please? Be a good sacrifice now. Come on, you saw what Jesus did. Don't you want to be like Jesus? What would Jesus do? Yeah, he would crawl up that cross and say, okay, I'm ready, do the nailing, do the nailing. Ouch! I mean, damn, can you give me a chance first? Damn. So that's your model. You got the real what we uh deem as those who are truly chosen, they don't even need a sacrifice because they're already good with God. They already good. They don't need a bit of bad. You filthy heathen Indians. Y'all don't need a substitute. And then you become the substitute. See how that works? That's how it works. That's how we work. Work, 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 work. Um, so we done made a long video, didn't we? Wasn't supposed to be, but we went in a little bit. And we did say we had to go back because we missed something. Now, I don't really want to get into all of this because this is not our story. This is a Moorish, tainted, uh, gussied up version. The Washita Moors enjoy diversity of citizenship. No, no. When it comes to your standing on the land as a sovereign, you only need one, and that is your birthright. We don't want two citizens because no two dual citizenships, because what happens is the system gets to pick and choose of those two citizenships, and they will choose the one that lessens your authority. The 14th Amendment citizen is the lowliest of all citizens, and Indians are not supposed to be citizens. They are mentioned separately from the free persons. Okay? We are called Indians. That is a misnomer that should void the contract. But what we like about it and what we're going to show the system is that you saw me as a sovereign before you used the Commerce Clause to make me subject to you. And then you use the 14th Amendment, which was meant for African slaves, which Indians were never African slaves. So that's another clause or another section of the Constitution where you thinking you could move me out of my birthright. But once I tell you, no, a Commerce Clause is a Commerce Clause, and an Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 Indian, that's a standing, not a commercial action. It's a standing. Commerce is about acting in commerce. Being an American Indian is just about what you are. You don't change what you are to operate in commerce because no other country has to do it. Like we said before, Chinese don't get called yellow, and they don't get Congress calling plenary authority over them when they operate in some kind of commerce with China. Okay? Oh man. They are citizens of the United States of America. That's the corporation, y'all, not the United States. And see, that's just This is just semantics. It could mean this or it could mean that. They saying they're not citizens, but they enjoy a diversity of citizenship. Well, if you enjoy diversity in your citizenship, why are you not claiming to be citizens of the United States of America? And you say not the United States. Well, you said you have a diversity. Why are you excluding these? Ain't you all of these and all of these are you and you are everything and everything is you? So why don't you want to embrace these? You have stepping. You ain't supposed to be no citizen if you're a real American Indian. But if you're a compromised Moorish Indian, you don't know what the hell you are, really. It changes with the wind. Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Uh, well, you shouldn't, because as an Indian, you don't want to be in colorable law. You want to be in birthright law. And that's the law that you would have to demand be the law of the land. And it would have to. Because that's like going to, again, we use China, sorry, China. Go to China and say, oh, y'all can't practice your Chinese law because you don't exist no more. So we just gonna, since we're not you, we just gonna bring commerce and we'll just turn your country to commercial law only, where we get to get all the benefits of your resources, and maybe the few of you that are left can be serfs on your own land working for a commercial corporation. So maybe that's what they're going to bring to every landmass. So the people do not have access to their own resource. I don't know why Indians think this is the best thing to be in this system, because that's what you will be in this system. When you take on a Moor's identity, you're taking on a foreign identity. You're saying you're a foreigner, or you're half foreigner, or you know more about being a foreigner than knowing about being a birthright Indian. So we did want to go back to something. Let me see if I can even find it because I'm all over the place. What was it that we wanted to look at? We wanted to look at. Oh, come on! I did not take it down, did I? Uh, they done messed up my previous session. Okay, I'm just gonna have to pull it up again. Okay, so crazy the way computers start to act up is really kind of amazing. You have a whole set of tabs and it forgets the tabs you had. That's what's happening now. So this is again the original 1787 Constitution for the United States of America. There's Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union according to the respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed. And we just leave it there. Behind all that confusion, Indians are not counted in census, like we always say, repetitive, but it's necessary. We're not taxed. Again, not represented in Congress, not taxed, not enumerated in any census. The South did not create the system because they tried to break out of it, but it was too late. They were already in, and the North saw it that way. The South, if the South knew how the system worked, they would know that they can't break out because the North is not going to allow it. They should have fought, but they didn't because they had Moors whispering in their ear. Let's just surrender. Come on, please. So Indians had to surrender to being dominated by the North. From there, they lost their land, and the civilized tribes show up, and they are a storefront that the government means the government is still running that land, pretending that these civilized tribes have any birthright authority, which they don't. No 501c3 has any authority, y'all, except that which they slave master give them, and it ain't going to be over slave masters' authority. They just living for a paycheck, not for their land. Somebody got to say it. So yeah, evidence number, I don't know, let's call it evidence number 23, like strawberry letter number 23. Or is it 22? We got to, I guess the idea is let's come up with all kinds of ways we can show that we could not have built this system. The number one way is we tried to break out of this, and this system said, that's not how we work. You can't break out. You're in for life. You're on a state now, not your ancestral land. You got to go by what we tell you to do, or we occupy you with a mercenary military to make you surrender, and then you have to take a 14th Amendment. So that means all the southern states to this day have been dominated by the union of these northern states. They had no choice but to take a 14th Amendment. That's why they're all slaves now. And they got their fakians in the civilized tribes, just go along with whatever massa tell them to do, but you can't have access to your birthright because you agreed to this. Oh yeah, we know you thought it was going to be like, becoming a citizen or getting civil rights. It would all be good for you. You should have known how we rock by now. How could you build a system that constantly turns against you and misleads you in so many ways? Is it a pride issue? Do you just like to say that you built something here in America because you have so little control of anything? You're the least power of all the powers in America. So this is the system. This is how you want it to be, then, right? Because you designed this system. You have to take responsibility for it messing you all the way up then, right? That frees up the Moors to walk on into glory, right? And then whoop your ass when you get to hell, too. How could you go to heaven? I mean, how could you? They don't want to give you your land on earth. Why they want to give you a mansion in heaven? Unless it's Moo Moo the Fool Mansion up down Moo Moo the Buffoon Street. Oh boy. We just God, this is what you gotta do when you being fed things that don't make sense. You gotta remind yourself, you know, this is for me, because I gotta be clear with all this all this mass programming going on, this propaganda, now the new propagandas saying that Indians designed this ass kicking system with their ass in mind. I just don't buy it. And I have to say all the ways that I don't see how that is. And it's not even me saying it, it's the Moors themselves. What we just read. Oh, that though, I think we're going to leave off. Once Indians established that we were supposed to be a entity foreign to this United States, that's when we'll get serious about creating our system and living off of the compensation that's owed us. I don't even know if we could call it reparation. It's called compensation for everything that was stolen, like our identity, our land, our resources, our labor, because it's like we're working for systems that don't serve us. We're just, we're just constantly body, mind, and soul. It's all that energy is going to a foreign entity that forced you to take a 14th Amendment that made you a debt slave because the 14th Amendment, oh, maybe that's what we should look at. Let me see if I could find the 14th Amendment. Stop share. Let's see. Do I have the 14th Amendment? I think I just have the 14th Amendment by itself. Not all of the other ones. Let's see if we can find it. Uh, let's see. 14. Let's see. Do I have it? Oh man. Oh, okay. Let me see. Is this? Uh, Oh, it's not here. Let me see. Public. Not what I wanted. I'm sorry. Let's see. I think I'm getting warmer. Okay. Okay. So we just want to look at how a 14th Amendment federal citizen is a debt slave. So again, we're not looking at all the sections of the 14th Amendment, but this is section 4 of the 14th Amendment. The validity of the public debt of the United States, the corporation, authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pension, blah, 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 shall not be questioned. So what we want to look at, again, they inflate these these parts of the Constitution with a lot of words, right? But when you break it down and erase, you gotta. Well, I realize what Indians have to do is they gotta get rid of the extraneous words. And okay, let's see. Well, okay, let's do it here. The validity of the public debt of the United States shall not be questioned. That's what makes 14th Amendment federal citizens. What is that? A federal citizen is a United States citizen. A state citizen, well, that depends on what state you're talking about. That's what citizens used to be. They used to be associated with a specific state. But then these word spell casters, Moors, they came up with something called the United States citizen. So it sounds like you're a citizen of all 50 states when that is not practical or necessary. So the idea of a quote unquote United States citizen is really moronic. You were not born in all 50 states. Therefore, you are not, or you do not need a United States citizenship. You need a citizenship in the state you were born in until you decide to move to another state and you get it. That's how it was supposed to work. But they're using word semantics to make us think that a United States citizen is like the highest type of citizen because you're a United States of all the states, blah, blah, blah. No, 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 no. You don't need to be a citizen in all 50 states. In your lifetime, you probably won't even step foot in all 50 states. Why would you need a citizenship for all 50 states? It's not practical, doesn't make sense, not necessary. So the word, the phrase United States citizen doesn't even make sense. It should always be, what state are you a citizen of? But that no longer exists. Because although they call it a dual citizenship, the truth is they're only treating you like a United States citizen because the United States is taking the higher authority when it was the states that used to have the more sovereignty than the federal United States. So they twisted the whole system, got turned around. And in this, if in order for when you say you created the system, why didn't you see the red flags? See, that's how you're going to incriminate yourself. Don't take credit for the system. Leave it to your Moors, and then you will make headway. But as it stands, if you keep taking the blame for all the failures of the system, because it has failed no one more than it failed you, Indians, Americans. Why would you want to take responsibility for a system that has failed you and you don't even know how to fix it? You tell an Indian that you shouldn't be a United States citizen, and it's, I'm not giving up my citizenship. Okay, so then you don't know what you built for yourself, do you? You don't know how it works. Someone else is working it against you, and you don't even know that that's happening. That's how I know you didn't build it. When somebody builds something, they know exactly how it works. That's just common sense, y'all. You did because you saw it through every phase of the building process. You know every part that went into a thing you built. It was not defined by a foreign British government. If you build a legal system, a British law book or legal dictionary would not define the terms of the thing you built. You would define them. So Indians, I don't know how they are claiming to have built this system, that we designed the system. It failed you more than anybody. How is it possible that you designed the system unless you're sadomasochistic and you're into genociding yourself? Let it go. So that your American Indian spirit can grow. So the 14th Amendment that you designed, American Indians, made you a debt slave. A real Indian doesn't know anybody. Not a colonel, no least, no less. I mean, oh boy, I'm getting tired of all that. We don't owe colonizer anything. They've been using our labor to make money. They're using our resources to make money. And as we said earlier, apparently it's really the labor that I think they get the most out of, more than the resource. Again, somebody has to work those resources, and it ain't going to be the nobility. They're just going to sit back and have high tea and all that shit. So it's really the Indians' labor and having to work for 60 or so. Now, the average Caucasian, I think, would be okay if they retired at the first opportunity of their retirement. Whereas American Indians, I would say that it's more likely we that would, really feel like we have to work past retired. You see how the system just knows how to enslave you, and if you built the system, it wouldn't be like this. American Indian, anybody? Anybody? That's the 14th Amendment, Section 4 that we're looking at. And when you cut through all the BS, like we have to do with Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, when it talks about Indians not taxed, you have to eliminate all the extraneous confusion, babble to get to the meat and bone. The validity of the public debt of the United States shall not be questioned. That means, again, when somebody puts a bill in front of you, you can't even say, can you break this down for me? Say somebody puts a bill and it's not broken down uh and into individual parts of what is owed. It's just one bill, like say, oh, you owe $1 trillion. Oh, can you break it down for me? Like, how did it add up to $1 trillion? What's the different, what's the breakdown? There's no breakdown. You owe $1 trillion. Are you questioning what I told you you owed? That's what the federal government can say. And Indians would have to say, well, no, I was just trying to ask. Ask, is that questioning? Well, yeah, but what? You said you designed the system and put yourself in this perpetual debt slavery. So all the more reason that when we put a bill in front of you, it shall not be questioned. What that means is shut up and pay up. I said you owe $1 trillion, gazillion, tillion, trillion, billion, gadillion dollars. Oh, that's how I'm staying awake, y'all. I gotta do little things to make myself laugh. Um, I told y'all that word cotillion just breaks me up, man. I don't know where it came from. I don't know. It just worked. Um, poor Indian man. I feel so in my heart of hearts. You just can't help but feel so bad for we get we. It's like we are. The colonization mental programming is one of the most sophisticated, extreme, and just profound examples of mental programming. They got us thinking that we designed the system that's genociding ourselves. And again, when the Moors convince us of that, they get to skip into the sunset. And the Indian's sitting there with a noose around his neck, pulling it himself. And don't know that you know, I did this. And the Moor said, oh, okay. All right now. So the will is all you left everything to me, right? And you signed it oh peace be upon the Sultan, right? And all of that, and Allah and stuff, right? I did, but you thank you. Oh, good night, bye, thank you. That'll be all. But I thought that, it's just Indians just have your own identity without a more. That's all I'm asking. Can you do that, or do you need? What is there something that you feel the more has that you don't have? Because Lord, no, all he wants is your land. My God, it's not like you went over there doing all these wheeling and dealing and grimy and slimy things, right? So who has what? Who wants? So then, okay, so start to have a little more respect for your identity and sever ties so that you can grab your birthright. You can't be two things and get one birthright for one people. You got to be American Indian all the way, and you have to reject your Moorish side like they're rejecting you right now and to this day as heathen, because you never got treated any better once you converted. The legal system got worse. They created a whole new set of laws for you. They called you African, so they gave you civil rights. You had birth rights, the superior rights, and then you were reduced to civil rights. They got you paying their debts. I mean, what gives here, American Indians? Well, you're going to make it a shameful thing to be an American Indian just with the sheer stupidity of taking the blame for a system that has failed you. That you can't even you wouldn't be able to claim reparations because you're saying I built this system. You know, they're already going to call you black and all of that. And you know, if you take a quote unquote reparations package under the name black, that's going to be reported. Indian, if you take the money and quote unquote run, you're going to never stop running because you have, first of all, you sold your birthright and they're going to have a recording of it. You will never have, you won't, it's like you won't be able to ask for anything. The first thing, and if you do ask for back money, you'll say, well, give me my money back or something to that, or, something crazy. I made, okay, everything that you bought with that money, just if you want your birthright, you can't have, the something got to change. We can't, because once we gave that to you, our hands were washed. We paid our debts. And you took it. You didn't have no land. You just took the money. And now, even if you buy land, you're not going to have the authority on the land as a birthright. You're going to be in my commercial system, and I'm going to be getting taxes or whatever, blah, 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 because you took a package deal. It's a package deal. I think if they were to give us a payout like that as blacks, there's no claims we can make as Indians. Because they're going to say, this is the black package. You should have fought more for an American Indian package by severing any ties to any foreigner so that you could be the only one to get that thing that it's owed to strictly you, not to a Moor. But if you're a Moor, then we don't owe you. So I apologize that I was kind of dipping in and out of conscious, saying things that had nothing to do with the video because I was speaking in La La Land. My apologies. But I hope something was valuable in this video and that it really goes where the ancestors need it to go and taken in the spirit of strictly pro-American, so-called Indian, strictly American. I don't support two opposing entities like Moors and Indian. No, this has to be only for Indians because that's the only way they're going to get respect is if they pick up their own identity and stop relying on the accolades of some people because they look like they have you speaking your own demise in every way. So this message is more about love and concern for American Indians than it is not. I think we're going to stop here. I want to say thank you for watching. I apologize again. I was dipping out at a few points. I was, kind of tired. And so this video ended up being a more of a lengthy one than I intended. But again, it's just, I feel like it's just necessary to keep repetitive. Till next time, thank you so much for watching. If you would please like, share, and subscribe. I hate to have to say it, but all YouTubers have to, especially when they have an unpopular message, because their message ain't gonna go nowhere that these Moors ain't trying to have it heard unless people make a point of, you know, liking, subscribing, or sharing, or all of the above. It will go a long way. Um, till next time, thank you for watching. Peace.